Good evening, everyone. It's on or about 6:30, so I will call this meeting to order, and in doing so, I'll ask that you silence or turn off any cell phones or pagers if it's still 1992 in your life, or if you're a firefighter. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council approve the January 21st, 2019 Council meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Those opposed? The motion's carried. I'll ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest, and if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. And we'll now move into announcements, and I know specifically Councillor Bateman has an announcement with regard to Hockey Fights Cancer. Councillor Bateman.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to tie up too much time, but I'm going to start by thanking Director of Parks and Recreation, Jim Miller, and his staff. Back in November, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, it was on November 3rd, we held an event. Mayor Ostrander, Councillor LeBlanc attended. We put together Hockey Fights Cancer, and it's the first year they allowed minor sports to participate in this NHL initiative. And I was very pleased with the turnout, and the threshold to be recognized was $250. We raised $1,500 on the day. So at this time, I'd like to, with the Mayor and Council, to join me to present this to Mr. Miller to hang in the arena. But I've talked to the Mayor, and what I'd like to do is something a little different, because this money didn't come from me, it didn't come from Council, this came from the residents. So I would love, the paper, we can get a picture of us presenting this to Mr. Miller, but I would like to have the citizens in the background of this, because they're the ones that donated this money. So.
Are there any other announcements? That was a good one. Are there any other announcements? Councillor Tadman.
It shouldn't come from me. I think it should come from Mr. Councillor Bateman to the success of the meeting on Saturday, if he would like to speak to that.
Agreed. We had a roundtable with MPP Pacini with regard to rural broadband internet. It was an initiative that Councillor Bateman brought forward and helped organize with the MPP's office. Councillor Bateman, would you like to speak to that, please?
I want to thank again, it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, I want to thank the residents, because the easy part was getting MPP David Pacini to agree. You came up with a date, but to see as many residents that came out on an important issue, and I was extremely impressed with the depth of knowledge. I think we all were, and to all the councillors that were there, the knowledge base that's out there in the residents is going to make this new committee, when we get going, I think we're really going to start trending towards a real solution within this community, and we might be the ones that set the trend for other municipalities to solve this. Like, I was extremely impressed.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. And as you mentioned, from a comment made by Councillor LeBlanc at that meeting, Council struck a committee tonight specifically to investigate and look at issues surrounding rural broadband in the municipality of Brighton. Both Councillors LeBlanc and Bateman have been appointed to that committee as council reps, and will be reviewing what that committee is going to look like and bringing terms of reference forward so that we can advertise that and get citizen reps on that as well. Are there any other announcements? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Tadman.
Just further to that, Mayor, through you, just for instance, how bad the connectivity is there. There's a couple who had to sell their home, and they just lived on down number 2 highway. I can't think of the name of the the couple's name. He's a pastor at the Pentecostal church. She works in Toronto, but could work at home, but she can't get enough speed to do the job, and their teenagers can't get their homework done there, so they had to sell their home, and they're buying in Brighton. And their experience in the past was 21 years in Africa in small villages, and had far better connection than what they got right here in Brighton. And we heard other people saying the same thing. So it's a real need in the rural area. And kids are falling behind because they can't get their homework done. And so we really need to get on this.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. And yes, that's right. As it was said at that meeting, this is a healthcare issue for rural doctors who need to be able to transfer files and information to hospitals. It's an education issue for children who want to do studies online. And from my chair, it's an economic development issue. If we're trying to encourage businesses to come to our community, businesses that don't necessarily belong in an industrial park, but maybe belong in the north portion of our community. So, Councillors Bateman and LeBlanc, we look forward to your active participation on that committee.
Thank you, Mayor. The only other thing I would say, if you could pass on, we've already passed it on, but Northumberland County Warden John Logal attended as well, which we were very appreciative, and was a good value add because they're working at it at that level as well. So when you see him on Wednesday morning, if you could pass along my thanks once again for his attendance.
Certainly will. Go ahead.
And further to that, I think that the public here in the paper should be advised that there will be a terms of reference for that committee, and anybody that's interested, especially that's in the rural area, or anybody that has, it wouldn't take much to have more knowledge than me, but has to have knowledge in that area. If you're a techie, definitely, we would encourage you to apply to that committee.
Right, and once we have those terms of reference, we'll put an advertisement in the paper to seek citizen participation on that committee. Are there any other announcements? Moving on to adoption of the minutes, I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council approve the December 17th, 2018 Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. So we'll now move into, it's not really a statutory public meeting, but it is a public meeting, a public session regarding retail sales of cannabis. And I will simply ask if there are any persons present who wish to speak on the subject regarding retail sales of cannabis in the municipality of Brighton. Mr. Green. And even though you're one of our regulars, Mr. Green, we will ask you to please state your name for the record.
For the record, David Green. I'm here representing the Beacon Youth Center, and we had a meeting today specifically on this topic. And I understand from our previous discussions, or council's previous discussions, that the potential of getting a cannabis retail operation in Brighton is slim to none. Could be 4 or 5 years away. We all know our population, etc., and the commitment that a retailer would have to make to come to the community. But it is a stance of the Beacon Youth Center that it is not an appropriate sale in Brighton, and we do not support the retail sale of cannabis in the town. And we would encourage council to consider that during your debate and your discussions. Our young people have enough challenges as it goes. Sadly, there's many that still even attend down to Tyandaga, often when they get their cigarettes. We don't feel that it will add value or any presence in the town, and it will have a negative effect on the young people who are trying to strive so hard to be better. And we continue to put challenges in their face to the point that they are tasked to make very difficult decisions when they don't necessarily have the background, the education, or the knowledge to make the right decision. So we would encourage council to opt out of the cannabis retail sales in the municipality of Brighton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. McMurray. Don't expect me to know everybody's name, okay? I just know a couple of these guys. Please state your name for the record, Roger.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm Roger McMurray. I live on Mead Street in Brighton, and I would support Mr. Green's request for council to deny the sale of or the presence of a cannabis shop in Brighton. I grew up here as a kid, and God knows there's enough temptations with alcohol and tobacco and what have you, without having another mind-bending product to keep out of the hands of young people. So I do support there's going to be enough places in adjacent towns where people can get it if they want, but I don't think it's necessary here in Brighton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McMurray. Anyone else? Mr. Harwood. I pulled that one out of my hat. Could you push Mr. Harwood, could you push the purple button in front of you on the microphone? There you go. And then state your name for the record, please.
Okay, I sent an email through...
Mr. Harwood, could you state your name for the record, please?
Pardon?
Could you state your name for the record, please?
My name is John Harwood.
Thank you.
I sent an email to Candice Dwyer giving her my opinion on this. Would it be useful to read it out at this time?
All of those correspondence are included in the council package. So if you've sent correspondence, we have received it, and it is included for our deliberations tonight. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? So I guess I didn't move to go into the statutory public meeting. So I'll move it now. Moved by Councillor Bateman, second by Councillor Anzo, that council move into the statutory public meeting session. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. And Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that council rise from the statutory public meeting session and reconvene regular business of council. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you, everyone. And we have 4 delegations this evening, the first being from the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 100, President Stu Sharp and Vice President Paul Langevin. Gentlemen, if you will, please. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll just remind you that your presentation is to be 10 minutes or less.
You'll cut me off?
Go.
Yeah. My name is Paul Langevin. I'm the Vice President of the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 100.
And I'm Stu Sharp, the President.
And we have come here tonight to talk about our Raise the Roof campaign and to solicit your support. I believe I gave you handouts of the presentation. You all got copies of the presentation. Before we get into the specific of the request, I would like to give some background information. The Legion has been a part of this community for a very long time. We have been here for 95 years. Our 100th anniversary is coming up very shortly. It all began in 1924 when we received our Legion Charter in 1931. The Legion building itself is 70 years old. It was built on the site given to the Legion by the Broughtons, and the construction was done totally by volunteers. Our current volunteer engineer has told us that they did a very good job. And we are here because the community wanted us to be here, and we have become an integral part of the Brighton's heritage. These are the functions of the Legion. You're probably very familiar with the first two. The third function is highlighted because I want to talk to that one a little bit more. Supporting our community is perhaps the least well-known of our functions, and for this presentation, it is the most relevant. We think that the Legion is an active player in supporting community organizations and services that benefit all the citizens of Brighton. First of all, financial. This slide gives a sampling of the community services and programs that we provide direct financial support. As you can see, we support a variety of organizations and services that involve seniors, youth, health, welfare, recreation, and the environment. Regarding seniors, the Legion, to a large extent, is operating as a senior center for Brighton. We do attract younger folks, and they are most welcome. They are the people that give us the energy to drive the Legion forward. Over the past 3 years, we have averaged about $9,000 in financial support to community organization, programs, and services. Here is another way that we support the community. Free use of the upper and lower levels of the Legion. You can see here a representative sample of some organizations and groups that use our building free of charge. Some of these organizations and groups use the facility on a weekly basis, like the VON exercise program, TOPS, and Happy Quilters. Others less frequently. Another way that we support the community is through rentals. There are not many locations in Brighton to host larger groups. This is particularly acute since the Mason Hall has been sold and will be turned into living accommodations. Our goal with the rental program is simply to provide an affordable venue for Brighton. Our rental fees are extremely reasonable and our profit minimal. Our profit really depends on how often people say hello to the bartender. Here you can see some of the types of rentals. Again, some of these rentals are on a regular weekly basis, and others are single occasion usages. Finally, this is an emerging way the Legion will support the community. One of our younger members had this idea. He followed up with the Brighton Fire Department and spoke with Chief Caddick and Deputy Chief Ogden. The Chief and Deputy Chief came over to the Legion and recommended our facility to the Northumberland, that's a bad one, the Northumberland Emergency Planning Services. We are now waiting for their decision. Once this has been completed, we will be putting the proposal before our membership for consideration. Now to the matter at hand. On the one hand, we have an old building that is deteriorating in a variety of ways. But the most significant problem is the roof. It has been leaking for years, and we have been patching it up for years, hoping that this time it will work. This has not been the case. Early last year, we had a flood. The snow and ice had built up on the roof, and the water came in. It was so bad that we had to close down the Legion for a few days to clean up the mess. This was our cue that we had to do something. On the other hand, we do not have the reserves to fix the problem. There are a number of reasons for this. The key is our financial structure. The money that comes into the Legion has very specific purposes, as you can see here. Our main income comes from bar sales and donations, which we can use to keep our facility running. At this point, we are just keeping our head above water. Oops, what happened here? Ooh, we lost our, oops, here we go. How comes it's not going up on the top? I must have hit a button there somewhere. Yeah, once it's, okay. So, it won't move forward. I can't get to the next slide. Oh, here we go. Okay, our response. So we started out assessing the problem, and our early assessments we came to the belief that we were simply doing more patchwork. And this has gone on for over the years, but never fixed the problem. The later or current assessments involve fixing the problem for an extended period of time, and this is our goal. We want to put this problem behind us. The difference between the 87K and the 120K proposal involves how the contractor approaches the machinery on the roof. The 120K proposal deals with machinery effectively. The contractor would take the machine off the roof, fix the roof, and then put the machinery back on the roof. Our President, Sue Sharp, put together a committee chaired by Cheryl Langevin, charged with the task of coming up with the necessary funds to replace the roof. In the early days, we thought that 50 to 55K would do, but once we got into it, we realized we would need a lot more to do the job that we wanted. Since this first article appeared in the Independent, we have been able to raise 40K. The community and the members came forward once the news was out. The Raise the Roof Committee is active in working on a continuing fundraising strategy that is underway. At the federal level, we have met with Jamie Simmons in Kim Rudd's office. He was receptive to our proposals and is looking diligently into potential funding levels. We just talked to Ms. Rudd yesterday, and she gave us an interesting proposal. She said that she would be willing to raffle off a dinner with her and a tour of the Parliament buildings. So that's something that Cheryl is going to be looking into. We've also made contact with David Passini. He has volunteered to come to meet with the executive to talk about our situation. Hopefully he will be able to be of assistance. I would like to ask if any of you have influence with the federal or provincial representatives. We would certainly appreciate a good word on our behalf. And finally, we are going to begin very shortly soliciting the local business community for funding. Oh, gee, I'm too fast. Our committee will be recommending to the executive that we go with the most expensive option. Although it is a lot of money, we are of the opinion that it gives the best bang for the buck. If the executive agrees with the Raise the Roof Committee, then a motion will be put to the membership at a special general meeting in late February. It is the membership that will have the final say. Prior to Christmas, we completed the application for assistance from the municipality. We talked with Linda Whitfield before we completed the application. And in that submission, we are asking for $30,000. To the best of my knowledge, the leadership has not reached out to the community in this manner over the course of our history. We do recognize the municipality does assist us by deferring the non-educational portion of our property tax. I was just talking to Roger McMurray this evening, and he told me something interesting that I didn't know. He told me that at one point, the Legion donated the building where the rock, paper, scissors building is. I don't know how long ago that was, or if anybody remembers that, but apparently it took place. Oh, God, why do I have to do about it? This thing doesn't work. That's the problem. The Brighton Legion is not about the place. Rather, it is about the people who come into the Legion, whether as a member of the citizen of Brighton. Here are some of the kinds of things that people say about the Legion. Most importantly, the Legion is a community that is very closely connected to the Brighton community. As one local business person commented while making a substantial donation, the Legion has been the cement of this community for a long time, and I would give more if I could. It is in this spirit that Branch 100 is coming to you for assistance. From our perspective, if the Legion is lost, there is nothing to replace it in this community. That is why so many people are working hard to prevent this from happening. Finally, this is how the Raise the Roof Committee has come to see the issue facing the Legion and the community. Quite simply, if we have no roof, we have no Legion. This concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Longerman. Mr. Sharp, I'm going to read a motion and then I will open the floor for questions from members of council. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Vink. The council received the delegation of Stu Sharp and Paul Langevin of the Brighton Legion requesting financial support to replace the Brighton Legion roof. Are there questions from members of council? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's a very good presentation. I sympathize with your issue, and you said something about being in the water. I thought that was tied in pretty good, but I have one question. Membership dues, 65% go to the Dominion Command.
Yes.
And your last statement here, no roof, no Legion.
Right.
Are you going to receive any support from Command? Are you able to ask for support?
Yes, we are going to ask for some support. What you can get from Command is a loan. And you get a loan up to $25,000. What we're going to ask from our Command is enough money to pay the HST, because the Legion gets HST back again, so that's about some $15,000. So we won't have a problem returning that money.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. The membership has to approve going to Command for money.
And you think they will?
Yes, they will. They better.
Councillor Tadman, did you have a question?
Not necessarily a question, but I know that Cheryl's the head of the committee. That's correct. And so are you doing any challenges? Because I'm allergic to cold weather, but I think a challenge would be great to maybe have a polar plunge and have the mayor and other councillors. And I'd gladly sponsor each one of them.
I'll speak to Cheryl about that.
Thank you.
Please don't. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. I have a question as well regarding the 120,000. When you speak to that, I'm assuming that includes an engineered report. Is that solely for the roof, or are there any other components? Is it just the roof structure, 120,000?
The volunteer engineer did look at it. He didn't, I forget his name. You know, Stuart?
It skips me right now, but he was a wonderful engineer from Belleville, and he said he had a soft spot in his heart for Legions, and he did not bill us one penny for all his work, and he gave us a great report. The structures up in the roof are in great shape. It's just that flat roof. The repair they tried to do 10 years ago is the one that's, well, now there are actually two roofs up there, and they're both rotten. They both have to come off, and that's why it's so expensive. You mentioned challenges. One of our members has challenged veterans if they would donate $1,000. He donated the first 1,000 for a veteran, and we had another gentleman, a Korean vet, come in today and donate $1,000. So those challenges do work.
I'm certain that they would.
Councillor LeBlanc?
That engineer, he volunteered, no charge, and he's still involved advising us as we're going along.
As a veteran and an ex-military man, that I've lost a lot of uncles in the Second World War, and some of them came back and became alcoholics because they didn't know how to deal with PTSD then, that they have, and they did, and some of them lost limbs. I have one uncle that they named a street after in Truro, Nova Scotia. It's not a funny story, but anyway, he was a sailor. He went out of Halifax, halfway out, they torpedoed his ship. 24 hours in the water, they picked him up. He went to England. He had to come back. On the way back, outside the Halifax harbor, the Germans torpedoed his ship again. His name is Billy Stevenson. They name us a strip. If anybody, a street after him in Truro, if anybody wants to read the book and stuff, I'll give it to them. And as a veteran, I'll match that $1,000 that they're doing for that. So, but also the Legion has helped out my father-in-law to get a pension, and they help out the war vets a lot, and they help in this community, they help out the community a lot. And I've been to a lot of your events, and if you notice, when they go to the November 11th, I always put money on the bar for all the people that are there. I hope you know that.
Yes.
Every time, so that they can all have a drink or two for tea. And I am very proud that you guys came here. And as a councillor, I'll be very proud to help you out to get some financing. And you've also given me the envelope as a businessman, and as my business, I will help out too. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Just another couple of questions, and this is not to sound pessimistic, because I know you're very optimistic with how your project turns out. What will happen to all of the donations received if you don't meet your goal in order to get the project finished?
We are staying positive. We are going to reach the goal. And that's one of the reasons we're here tonight. We're reaching out to everybody and anybody that we think could help us. And it's a great undertaking. If you had asked me 3 or 4 months ago if we could raise $42,000 like we've done so far from this town, it's amazing. And we just got to get to that goal.
Councillor Bateman.
I just want to thank you for your presentation and ask the one question. Are the HVAC units and everything on the roof, they're fine? It's just the roof itself?
Yes, they are. We've had them both checked out, and I think we're applying for a new one because the one, what they are is 2 furnaces up there, one for the lower level, one for the upper, and one has about a 5-year expectancy, so we're going to try to get another loan to replace that one, and while it's off the roof, we will put the new one in its place. But the other one is fairly new, so we're in good shape that way. But they both have to come right off the roof before the roof is fixed and then put back on.
Deputy Mayor?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. So your estimate of 120, that doesn't include the HST, does it? The amount that you're going to...
No, that would be another 15. That's what we hope to be able to get that from command.
So 120 is your goal, and so you've raised 40, you're looking for 30 from council, and the other 50 you plan to still raise, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then the 15 from the command?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tadman.
Oh, I was just going to make a funny. Am I allowed funnies?
Councillor Bateman.
This is more just two follow-up comments. I would second, even though it's not a seconding position, to see the polar bear plunge, and love to see our mayor step up to the edge of the ice.
All right, thank you, everybody.
And also, I'd just like to mention, I know this isn't a sale pitch, but Brighton Minor Hockey is on board with our, if you want to touch base on the NHL alumni game, we're trying to raise money for you with. Yeah, we're working on it.
Any further questions? I've read the motion. We have an application that we'll see come forward at budget time, so we don't need to refer anything to budget because that will come forward. I'm getting the affirmative from the CFO. All those in favor of receiving the delegation? Those opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next delegation is with regard to physician recruitment. Mr. Smiley, Chair, Ms. Mason, Physician Recruiter, from the what is it? It's the City of Quinte West Physician Recruitment and Retention Program. Welcome. And as with the other crew, I'll remind you, you have 10 minutes for your delegation. Thank you.
That's it. But that's okay. That's a good title to leave up. So that's as important. So almost as important as the Legion. And to the Legion, I don't know if they're still here, but I'm a Quinte West business, but I would absolutely make that commitment too. I've seen what the Legions do in our communities. It's incredibly important that we keep them in our community. So I will also make that commitment to match that $1,000. So, but I'm here to ask you for money as well. So don't be too happy. So my name is John Smiley. I'm from the City of Quinte West. I live halfway between Quinte West and Brighton. I'm chair of the Quinte West Trent Memorial Hospital Foundation Physician Recruitment Committee, and with me is Paula Mason, who is our physician recruiter. We were here to talk to you about a year ago to pitch an idea about physician recruitment. We went ahead with the Physician Recruitment Committee, and the work that Paula has done over the past year has been absolutely incredible. Our contact base and our positive responses from the medical students out there it's been almost overwhelming. I'm very, very positive that in the next 3 to 4 years we will be flush with doctors in the community of Quinte West. So I'm going to turn this presentation over to Paula, since she really knows the numbers and has done all the work. I'd like to turn this over to Paula Mason. So Paula.
Thank you, John. And we'll make it a quick presentation because I have had the opportunity to speak to most of the councillors and the mayor, save for Deputy Mayor Vink, who we didn't have a chance to pull our schedules together yet. So most of you have heard the presentation that we would typically give a formal presentation of. So I'd just like to highlight a few things. As John said, since the establishment of our program in November of 2017, our program has far surpassed any expectations that may have originally been set. Through attendance at 10 different recruitment events across the province and through leads from our community, we've spoken to over 500 individuals who have an interest in medicine. From those 500 individuals, we've gathered over 300 names and email addresses. And from those 300 names, we've created a prospect list of more than 60 potential physicians. So these are individuals at different levels of their education, whether they be several that are simply in high school at this moment that have aspirations to go on to medical school, to undergraduates in different science or that sort of programs at universities and colleges, as well as medical schools throughout Ontario and Canada, throughout residency programs that are already associated with different universities, as well as physicians. So we have about 11 current physicians from other parts of the province and a couple from out of the province that we are working with. So these are 60 hot prospects. Of those, we have signed one. So last September, barely a year into the program, we did sign our first doctor, and he will be starting when he graduates in the year 2021. We're in negotiations with a couple others, so we've got some very, very strong negotiations going on there that hopefully within the next couple of months will result in some more good news. We understand, too, that Brighton has had some success in recruiting physicians, but another big part of recruitment is the retention. Our program has established a strong retention component where we're working to ensure that the physicians that we have here want to stay here. So it's important that we make them feel like they're part of the community. We've hosted several different social events, one not too long ago that Mayor Ostrander and Councillor Bateman attended at the Belleville Sens game. We got to meet some of our potential recruits and a couple of our new doctors. As well, we work hard with the doctors too in terms of succession planning or planning for locums or replacements that they may need in order to take vacations and such. So as important as it is to recruit these new doctors to our area, we need to make sure that the ones that we have stay, and our program addresses that. We feel that by aligning our efforts with yours, it'll eliminate the need for your municipality to administer a separate volunteer committee. As well, we've already established connections and we have processes in place to reach candidates throughout the country and beyond. We'd like to promote the quality of life in your prime location here in Brighton, and ultimately it would be our goal to get away from you having to cut a check for a financial incentive to have these doctors come and practice. We want to sell them on the lifestyles that can be provided from here. Funding from the municipality would allow us to expand our program, help us to offset the cost of attending even more recruitment career fairs, which will allow us access to even more prospects. It'll enable us to continue to develop our promotional materials, conduct more in-depth community tours, and develop local programs and events that would showcase our area to medical learners. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them.
So I'm going to read a motion, then I'll open the floor for discussion. And the motion is moved by Councillor Tadman and seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council received the presentation from John Smiley, Chair, and Paula Mason, Physician Recruiter, not Physician. Physician Recruiter of the Recruitment and there it is. Physician Recruitment and Retention Coordinator, Quinte West, requesting that the municipality of Brighton partner with the City of Quinte West Physician Recruitment and Retention Program. Councillor Bateman.
I just wanted to follow up when Councillor Tadman and I had met with you, and it was a great presentation. The one question I had asked, and I don't know if you've given any thought, if this is something the municipality proceeded with, have you given any thought to looking to the private sector, specifically the real estate group and perhaps the development group, because they stand to gain anything that we bring to this town and growth and doctors, because part of the presentation was centered around that type of stuff, the real estate and the new houses. I would love to see the private sector, if it was something we proceeded with, where they had a match, because they're in this as well.
I would say on our committee, sir, we have we have pretty much a spectrum of the business community from Quinte West, including real estate agents. Really, the match we put in from the community is from and through the foundation. So the foundation has matched what the city of Quinte West has put in, because we fully believed it was the foundation that brought this to Quinte West Council, and we fully believe that it should be brought by the community and for the community. We don't want the different regions funding it. We do want them to fund it, but we want it to be funded by the community as well. Therefore, the foundation puts in a good chunk too. We've also been successful in getting the military to come on board and fund part of our endeavors, and I think we're going to be getting more funding from them next year as well. They've also agreed to take part. There's some shows out there that are thousands of dollars to attend that we have not attended, but they've agreed to attend those and promote Quinte West in our behalf. So,
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So if the municipality of Brighton were to fund the committee, would you be seeking committee members from Brighton as well, like business people or members of the community? Is that part of the
absolutely.
package?
We would also ask that council appoint a representative to sit on it, as well as probably one or two community members.
Okay, that's great.
I need to clarify, I'm interim chair. I would love for a chair to come from Brighton.
Councillor Tadman.
Through you, Mayor, and can I ask you a question about way back in 2003, I believe the developers actually built the house for a doctor that was part of the recruitment then. So it's not like the developers haven't been involved, and maybe they would like to build another house, who knows?
We do have a landlord in, one of the problems we had, and as we found out over the past year, the huge learning curve as to what medical students go through and how they get recruited and where you find them. We have had a landlord in Trenton give us a very good deal on a lease for an apartment, because if a student was placed in Trent Memorial Hospital to work, they either had to stay in a hotel or commute, or they stayed in Belleville, but now they can stay right in this area. So,
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Paula, it was nice meeting you, and it was a very informative meeting that we had. I'm guessing that you have submitted a grant request to the municipality for us to look at budget time. And if I could just ask Ms. Whitfield, do we have a reserve, or do we have money in that's already been allotted for physician recruitment and retention, maybe other than what they're asking here? I know that over the years municipalities banked money in order to invite a physician here, or we've paid for a physician to come. I'm just wondering if we still have dollars in that account, or should I just wait till budget?
Are you able or prepared to answer that question?
Through you, Mayor. We have had in the past few years a number of recruitments, and so that money has been spent.
Right. Councillor Tadman. Your microphone, please. Your microphone.
Thought I pressed it hard. No, sorry. Great presentation the other day at Alicia's office, and I just wanted, I think, I did mention it to you, I'm pretty sure, but we have a member here in Brighton that hosts the student doctors, and she happened to be a long-time member of this municipality. She worked here for years, and now she hosts the interns, and she's always encouraging them to, so it would be a good person to get in touch with too.
Absolutely, yes. You did mention that, she has been doing some billeting for the same program that we use to get these students into town.
And if you need her phone number, I'll gladly give it to you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor LeBlanc?
Thank you very much for the meeting when we had it at Alicia Kemp's office. I believe that we need to have a healthy community, and a healthy community means that we have to have doctors here. We have more people coming in, and we're a shortage of doctors, and some are leaving and some are getting old. So I'm really supporting for some type of recruitment for doctors.
I'd just like to mention too, you brought that up, Alicia's name has been mentioned. Alicia Camp is one of our members of our committee as well, and she did assist with meeting with the individual councillors last week. She was hoping to be here tonight, but unfortunately she did have a meeting that took her out of town unexpectedly late this afternoon, so she does send her regrets, and she did fully intend to be here.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, and to our CIO. How are we moving along with the renovations on our building, and are we going to meet our needs for the spring? So the further to that question, will we have any more room if we do get another doctor?
Through you, your worship, Preston Parkinson, the new Director of Public Works and Infrastructure, met with Task Force Engineering, the design-build contractor, last Thursday. They want to have the shovel in the ground before the end of this month, so within another 6 or 7 days before the end of January, they want to be commencing construction with an anticipated completion date April or May timeframe, which was part of our tender award.
Yeah.
And yes, we will have additional square footage to accommodate physicians.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the delegation? I have a question. You mentioned right now we offer a $100,000
Financial
incentive, thank you, for a doctor who comes to the community. Did I hear you say that we could stop doing that if we were to bring you on board? And if I did hear that correctly, could you please elaborate?
Okay, yes, not per se. I think that that is our goal with our committee as well, because the City of Quinte West does offer the same $100,000. I think that is something that we are striving towards in the future, and it's certainly not the first thing I throw out on the table when I am talking to potential doctors. It comes much later. I'm interested to talk to and to recruit doctors that want to come to live in this area, because those are the doctors that are going to want to stay. I'm not interested in the fellow that called up and asked, if I leave after 4.5 years, do I have to give that whole $100,000 back? I'm not going to waste his time or my time in dealing with those situations. We want people that want to live in this community because it's a beautiful place to live.
Thank you.
So eventually, yes, we'd like to do that.
Appreciate that clarification. Have you made a formal request through the Finance Department for our budget deliberation? So we don't need to refer this to budget either. I'll ask one last time if there is any questions, and if not, we'll vote on receiving the delegation. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Mr. Bruce Davis, Secretary-Treasurer of the Brian Todd Memorial Community Foundation. And I understand Mr. Davis is going to educate us, as we can always anticipate he will. And as with the others, Bruce, I'll remind you have 10 minutes to complete your delegation.
I'm going to try and be a little closer to the 10 minutes than the other ones have.
Good.
Mr. Mayor. Find the... Yeah, I want to get... Oh, okay, I see. Okay, sorry. Okay. Well, first of all, just for the record, our name is not the Brian Todd Memorial Community Foundation. It's the Brian Todd Memorial Community Fund, and that's our legal name. So for the record, I'd ask you to change that, please. So I'm here to really tell you a little bit about the thread of partnership that we have enjoyed with council, with this municipality for the last 16 years. And we're very, very hopeful going forward that thread of partnership will continue. Now, I'm not here asking for money. So get that straight. We're not asking for any money. But I do want to educate you, as the mayor said, on what we've done in the past. Our first chapter was basically 14 years long, and our second chapter is just beginning. But I want to just go through a little bit about the past. There, okay, here we go. Arrow down? Nope. It's airing down on the screen here, but not on.
I did do that already. Sorry.
Okay.
Just so everyone knows, part of our strategic plan includes upgrading the AV in this room.
Pardon?
My 10 minutes hasn't started yet, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. There we go. Thank you. So I just want to throw you basically 4 or 5 quick slides here on our organizational structure. We were incorporated in March of 2002 under the name Brighton Health Services Center. Our sole object was to basically run, to operate the health facility at the old banquet hall on Creekside Banquet Hall. We received our registered status, charitable status, in June of the same year. And we are required every year to submit a charity report to the charity return to the government. And you can, if you wanted to, you could look on every one of them. Go online to btmcf.net, our website. Click on those on Make a Donation. Click on the CRA, and you'll be able to look at every financial report that we've submitted to the government since 2002. And I show these, and also every year we have an annual audit. So yeah, I only really want to point that out just to show you that we're legitimate. We comply with all federal and provincial reporting regulations and regulations, and we have independent third-party audits. So in June of 2002, the founding board, I was not a member of the founding board, but the founding board purchased the Creekside Banquet Hall for $425,000. And over the course of the next 3 years, we spent almost $1.7 million in renovating it to a health services center. And we really got to thank, and this is where the partnership really started. I mean, the municipal courage to give 9 volunteer directors who were doing this out of the goodness of their heart, and to give them this kind of support was just phenomenal. They started up with their initial $5,000 for the plan. And I'm not going to go through all this. I'll try and keep on time. But essentially, at the end of the day, the municipality actually supported this project to the tune of $686,287. And I want you to remember that number because it comes up again in the presentation later on. But some of the highlights. You can see there were over 2,300 donations in all. A good number of them over $500 a piece. $1.6 million raised in donations. We spent just a little over $30,000 in fundraising costs. And we also, when we borrowed the money from municipality, we did not get it for free. We paid $108,000 in interest. And over the course of our owning the building for that 15 years or so, we paid $408,000 back to the community in property taxes. All the time, the same time, we always had the rates for our tenants well below market rates. And when you go to that, if you have a doctor at the health center, and you're sitting in the waiting room, or you're sitting on an examination table, or you're in a doctor's office at his desk, you're looking at furniture that was contributed by our charity to the health team. We're the very first family health team in the province, and I really got to give a shout out here to our former mayor and our former MPP, Lou Rinaldi. It never would have happened. We would never had a family health team without his Queen's Park backroom advocacy. We did a heck of a lot of detailed documentation and planning to make application for a family health team. And we were so fortunate to actually have the Premier and the Minister of Health come down to our waiting room and actually announce the entire program for the whole province from our waiting room. And you see we have a YMCA and a full parking lot. I don't think anybody can dispute that it's a very valuable community asset. And the $1.1 million loan we got from the municipality, we paid off in 6 years, 5 years actually, well in advance of the requirement of the loan agreement. And so once we paid the loan off in 2008, we felt it was our desire, it wasn't an obligation, to go forward with putting together a grant program, but we really wanted to do that. Now, also, we can't just accumulate cash, and as a charity, we had to give it away. But we did that not because we had to, because we wanted to. And then, unfortunately, 2 years later, Brian passed away. This guy had his fingerprint on every aspect of this project. So in recognition of Brian, he renamed the fund the Brian Todd Memorial Community Fund in just shortly after his death. I'm sorry, in 15. He passed away in 11. And our very first donation was very significant. So Brian was a principal of ENSS years ago. He also died from cancer. And we contacted the school and said, we want to get you over the $1 million mark. It was maybe perhaps symbolic. I'm sure we would have gotten it anyway. But we gave them a $10,000 grant to get them over that $1 million hump and get them moving forward to their second million. And then in February of 2017, that's the board at the time doing cartwheels, we sold the building to you. And it's important, I think, that we show you how that selling price was structured. We did an appraisal of $1.250. You did an appraisal of $1.115 to the average. That was the selling price, $1,188,255. But remember that $686,000 I told you about earlier, all that money you'd given to us in earlier years. We credited us off the selling price. We also had been building up an allowance for a roof, an allowance for HVAC equipment that obviously doesn't last forever. So we gave you a credit on that. So net selling price is $430,000. Payment terms, mortgage was 0%. First payment was last March, and every March thereafter until it's paid off. 80% of the annual net income until it's repaid. And then, according to when we discussed this with your former CAO, the idea was, I believe he brought to council, that the remaining 20% would be set aside as a separate reserve for capital for that building. Now, I'm an accountant, and I think we all know that net income has very many definitions. It can be anything you want. So when we sold the building, we defined what net income cash basis was. There's the basic stuff: cash for paying receipts of rent and for paying bills. It doesn't include capital expenditures, depreciation, or any municipal overhead you might want to allocate to that account. So that's pretty straightforward. The one that wasn't maybe so straightforward is inducements that are put in place. I understand you've just recently approved or signed the lease extension to the Y at a rate that was lower than when we sold the building to you. So we'll have to add that inducement back to the calculation before it's calculated for the payment. And I'll meet with Linda, your CFO, to discuss that later on next month. Just to show you that it's very achievable. Those are the actual net income that we achieved in the last 4 full years of ownership. So we averaged $69,000 a year. So at 80 points, that's $55,000 a year you should be able to achieve. And you can probably achieve more than that, because here's some costs that we had to incur because we were a private sector. We weren't municipality. I'm sure your audit fees will be reduced. They'll probably roll into your overall municipal audit fees incrementally, maybe a bit more, a few more dollars. Same goes for direct liability insurance. You won't have a separate board, and you always use your own forces to cut grass and shovel snow. And those three components were approaching $20,000 a year when we owned it. So you've got a lot of room there to make $55,000 a year. So I think there's no denying, I hope you don't disagree, that we've got a pretty valuable asset there that you now own, both from a point of view of value and job impact. And this was quoted in the Independent 12 years ago now. At that time, it was determined to be an economic impact that couldn't be overlooked. And I think that's even more so today. And so with the sale of the building, and to keep legit, we had to change our name. It's quite a long process doing that. But we now are called the Brian Todd Memorial Community Fund. We revise our objects. We no longer have an object to run a facility. Our only object now is to basically receive money through donations and to grant it out to community development grants. When we first had our first object, it was just health-related grants only. Now we've expanded it. We can do health and community development. So we have a new name. We have a new board. A fresh start. Here's our grant history. We started the grant program shortly after our loan to the municipality was paid back. So we've done 9 loan awards so far. A new category last year, $5,000 went to 4 of the schools in our area, in our community. So 38 different organizations have received money from us, over almost $380,000 so far. And we try to stay within below $5,000, but if there's a good project, we'll go over 5,000, 19 times. Here's our current financial position as of today. We have about $220,000 in cash and GICs. A mortgage from you, $388,000. $680,000 in assets. We have no current debt, no long-term debt, but our social debt is too big to calculate. We had so much support from this community when we were doing this project years ago, and we want to pay it back. And we have three outstanding pledges right now. The Trinity St. Andrews are having an AV system installed in their community hall. So when they finally get enough money through their own fundraising initiatives, we'll honor that pledge. Skateboard Park, and Director of Parks and Recreation Jim Miller knows that we've already committed $2,500 to the design phase of the skateboard park. And then Butler Creek Trail, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes, $20,000. So how long will it last? Well, if we go at a 50,000 a year pace, which we'd like to do, we'll drain our funds by 2030. And then you see the other numbers go on. But seriously, we are a registered charity. I'm not asking the municipality for money, but everybody in here, I can ask them. We're still tax deductible, and I still really do consider our fund to essentially be our own United Way here in Brighton, although we can't call it that. So you can always donate, check our website. So we look at this now as a split stewardship. We've got a municipality now who owns the bricks and mortar. Because you now have sole control of that asset, you can develop a health services strategy a little more clearly. And tonight I passed around, I gave 4 new councillors this publication that we put together back in 2015. It has the input of all tenants at the time, the YMCA, the Access Center, the Early Years Center, the Family Health Team, and the County of Northumberland. And they all gave, well, they didn't endorse, but they certainly supported what we put in this document. So I encourage the 4 of you who got it tonight to read it. And I know the other 3 of you probably have it on your bedside table now, so I don't have to give you another copy. But also, oops, I'll get rid of that. Escape? There we go. But we can expand that footprint, and you've been alluding to it in one of the questions that was asked tonight about space. Back in the same document, we had an architect come in and did design work for us and identified the stages of 1, 2, and 3 of what you could do to expand that space. You could almost double the space of the current facility. In fact, you can more than double the rentable space of that facility. So I encourage you to look at that. I know you're doing something going forward that's similar, but I really encourage you to make sure you retain the footprint to the east for additional expansion.
Are you able to wrap up, Mr. Davis?
I've got a few more to go. The other had more than 10 minutes, Mr. Mayor.
No, they did not.
I'll go fast. So we want to be the glue and fabric. You go look after the bricks and mortar. And here's where I see our partnership is currently. And here's what we've done. We've had overlapping support, whether you realize it or not. There are 12 organizations right now that we've been supporting as well as you. Unbeknownst perhaps each of us. In the last 2 years, those 12 organizations received from us $109,000. I don't know how much they received from you, but we get $109,000. And also, you have helped us with fundraising projects. There's the Future Committee, the ENSS track. The notice board on the in front of the community center, the soccer club, because they're not a registered charity, we have to flow money through you to give to the soccer club, which we can't give money to non-registered charities, to non-registered organizations. I'm sure there are opportunities that we haven't thought of that we can help you if you allow us. And of course, the old gazebo, now the new one. We threw in $10,000. We helped Jim Miller in making presentations to organizations, and we helped him with the Trillium Fund application itself to arrive at the money needed for that facility. As I said before, $2,500 towards the skateboard park. And the Butter Creek Trail, 2007 or 2006, the first part was completed. Great little spot. It's just not long enough. But that, I'm sure, encouraged the Dillon report back in 2010 to recommend that the Butter Creek Trail be extended northward to Proctor Park. And it must have been important enough because Council decided to put in their strategic plan in June 2011. Because of that, we pledged $20,000 to help you. The second $20,000, you put the first 20 in, we'll put in the second 20. We publicly made that public in our grants in May of 16. You put in your budget that year that you did Stallway Link, but you haven't done Cedar Street to Ontario Street. And I've walked that. I've trespassed to do it, obviously, but it's beautiful. It's the best part on the whole creek. If you've been to Port Hope, we've seen what Port Hope has done. They put adult exercise stations along their river trail. They're really, really solid, well-constructed adult exercise stations, not for kids. And I was encouraged when I read a book not too long ago that had this quotation in it. I'll let you read it. I think you all will recognize the author. Anybody know him? So that's it, Council. I want to thank you for your time, and to let you know that we are here to continue helping with you and supporting you in anything we can and will do. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I'm going to read a motion, then I'll open the floor for discussion. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc and seconded by Councillor Tadman, and I have changed it slightly. I simply changed the word foundation to fund at the end, if that's okay with both of you. And it now reads that Council received the presentation from Bruce Davis, Secretary-Treasurer, Brian Todd Memorial Community Fund. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, and especially to the public and all the residents of this municipality. I'm sure you, Bruce, as well as all kinds of people around this table and out there know that this is the greatest community around for volunteers. Other communities struggle and they're no longer volunteers. They have to pay them to do the work. And every time a project comes up, the people of Brighton come to the table, and I'm sure that the roof will go on the Legion too, and they'll meet that commitment. And so I thank you for all the work that you've done.
Thank you.
But the other thing about the trails, and I know that your foundation has supported it, we had a committee in the last term of council, but we didn't form one, Mayor, this time. And I know Director Miller can tell you that we would love to get that trail moving, but we have a problem that we don't own the land, and the landowners aren't willing to.
Yeah, but it's not a problem, Councillor. It's not a problem. It's a worthwhile concept and investment. Okay. Your mayor says so.
Okay. Okay, get on it then, Mayor.
Right after I warm up from my polar dip, I'll get on that, yeah. Are there any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce, for your presentation. Always good to hear the good stuff in town. I was just wondering if Mr. Smiley and Miss Mason have been in contact with you.
No, they have not. Are they still here?
You could meet with them.
Actually, I was going to say that kudos to Lou Rinaldi because we got the family health team in here, and then 3 years later, after we did all the heavy lifting, John, you joined it. The province allowed Quinte West to join the Brighton Family Health Team, I think 3 years after it was initiated.
Any other questions? Councillor LeBlanc?
Through you, Mayor. Bruce, it's nice to see what has happened with the money. And you used to knock on my door a lot.
You did.
And I helped you out a lot. And I'm glad to see what it went to. I didn't know where it all went, but I know we were getting doctors and everything.
Yeah.
And if I can assist anytime, you know I will.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I just want to say it's nice to hear that the money that the municipality is paying to pay off the mortgage on this place is actually going right back into the community, and I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Councillor Tadman?
And I've heard rumors that the roof needs to be fixed immediately, and we bought a bad building, and that's not true, because that was all checked out before we purchased it. And the other thing is, I think it's 20% that goes back into a capital fund.
That's correct. That's my understanding as well.
Yeah, that's what I think I remember that too. So, as each year goes by, we're putting money into those kind of things like new roofs and whatever.
Yeah.
And the people in Brighton should know it's their building. It's not council's building. It's not anybody else's.
Well, I think a lot of people in town still think it's the YMCA's building. So
Yeah.
I like every now and then to point out the fact that it is not.
No.
They are a tenant, and now you are now the landlord.
Yeah, they're all a landlord, anybody that lives here.
Councillor Anderson?
Councillor Tadman, through you, Mayor. You mentioned the roof. The roof was in the news quite a bit a while back. What is the status of that situation? And you say the money's been set aside, or that's not your, Bruce, that's not your...
Councillor Anderson, that would be a question we would ask municipal staff, because it's our facility, we own it. We'll ask our municipal staff about the roof, and if they have any information for us, they'll bring it forward.
It's just that Councillor Tadman brought it up, so I thought it...
But I'm sure Mr. Davis can't tell us about the roof of a building he doesn't own. So
That's right. I've been up on that roof many times, but not in the last 2 years.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Davis. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Bruce. And I'll just ask if everyone's in favor of receiving the presentation. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. Davis. And our final delegation this evening is from Captain Jeff Morehouse. Delegation to provide information on the CFB Pond Hockey Classic. It takes place February 1st to the 3rd. Captain Morehouse. I saw a guy in a jersey. That must be you. It wasn't far off.
Thank you.
Welcome, Captain Morehouse, and I'll remind you that you have 10 minutes to proceed with your delegation.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor Ostrander, councillors, members of staff, and the public. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about our tournament they're running. It's the 8th annual now. Just hearing for the previous delegation, that it always impresses me how much money and what a few dedicated volunteers in the community can do. And this tournament is another example. It's completely run from the lead organizer right down to the main official on the tournament. Every single one of us is a volunteer. So February 1st to 3rd happens out in Battawa, the Battawa Community Center. We have our 8th annual tournament. Friday, February 1st, 17:30 show for we call it puck drop start at 18:30. The Battawa Community Center, we have live music, live auction, some great speakers. We've had Eugene Milnick, we had Peter McKay last year. We had Walter Gretzky a couple years ago, Ron Ellis. We've had some phenomenal speakers. And in amongst those speakers, we've also had some phenomenal speakers who've talked about Wounded Warriors as well and how that's helped them. This year, we are happy to announce that Laurie Boschman has a fairly storied NHL career as our guest speaker to headline the evening. He's there to speak about half an hour on everything he did in the NHL, and they usually have some pretty good stories that they like to share. I mentioned the connection with Wounded Warriors. Chris, one of the charities we support in addition to the TMH Foundation is Wounded Warriors. They have a phenomenal PTSD program. And Dan and Wendy are here to speak about that. Dan, retired veteran, suffers from PTSD. COPI, it's a new program that Wounded Warriors just started, and it actually involves PTSD work with as a couple as opposed to just working on the member. Because anyone who's dealt with someone with PTSD, the spouse suffers just as much, if not more, than the actual member themselves. And so they've discovered that working together as a team, you can actually increase success rate and the longevity of the programming, and the help is so much better. And so they're here to talk about that and to basically explain where the money that Wounded Warriors will be receiving from this tournament will be going to help people like Dan and Wendy. That's Friday night. It kind of kicks off our tournament. It's a very casual event. We encourage hockey jerseys actually for people to wear. Then Saturday the tournament kicks off. It's at the Battle Alliance Community Rinks. We have 6 ice pads set up. We have our own ice resurfacer to maintain beautiful ice. And we do have up to 40-team 4-on-4 tournament. Teams are guaranteed 3 30-minute games, and it's all based on the Canadian Pond Hockey Classic rules. And entry fee actually is, we were just received some great news. The Trenton Golden Hawks are looking after the officiating this year, so we're actually able to adjust the entrance fee, so it's just $320 per team. So the Trenton Golden Hawks have jumped in big time, and we'll actually have hockey players officiating, which will be great. I figure they'll chirp the officials next time they're playing a little bit less. Team 6 to 8 players, the registration deadline is this weekend. It's one of the best rated tournaments in the province. The only other 2 tournaments that are larger, one's in Huntsville and one's in Haliburton. And we definitely are the only one with our own Zamboni to clean the ice. During the tournament on the Saturday, we've tied in a family component. The Trenton Military Family Resource Center from 10 to 2 has kids events, ice skating, s'mores, Andy Forgey is performing. It's a number of fun events, and it's our way of tying in the entire family. A lot of times one spouse is playing hockey. Now the other spouse can bring them the kids have something fun to do, plus they can watch mom or dad play hockey. So it's really been a successful sort of venture with MFRC, and they've been able to grow their Winter Jubilee as well, working in partnership with us. We kick off the round robin Saturday with a pub night starting at 6 o'clock. Prince Eddie's Breweries is on board. We had Apple Falls Cider. Guapo's Cantina is a little standout of the county, and live band Moon Sugar. So it's a real local content is what we strive. The local business is extremely supportive of our tournament, and so we work on having as much local content as we can in this tournament. Sponsorship-wise, Scotia Wealth Management, Scotiabank have been on board since the very beginning. They have been our title sponsors. They've enabled us to grow the corporate sponsorship to the level it has. 2/3 of the money we raise actually comes from corporate sponsorship now. And we have wonderful packages out there, and we've got some great partnerships through it that has helped drive this tournament. Volunteers, like I said, we are in need of volunteers in all levels. Anybody who's organized a tournament completely understands the value of a volunteer. We provide meals for the volunteers. We treat them as well as we can, because the actual organizing committee, we're all volunteers as well. And whether you want to work outside or inside, we have tasks in both locations. Just to go quick outside of the facility that we do, because this is open year-round to people, there's 42,000 square feet of ice. Now we raise it up to 50,000 for the tournament. We have a heated change area, accessible washrooms, 2 hockey rinks with lighting, 1 skating rink only, and a large rink for your day use and only. We also have a tractor with a blower on it, an ATV, and Olympia ice resurfacer for rink maintenance. So these rinks are open Monday to 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. They're all lit with LED lighting. And this has all been basically funded through the Battle Alliance through various grants and fundraising that we've done, and it's free for the community. We sell rinks advertising space that pays for these facilities, and it ends up being quite a large complex. In the summer you can see it's just grass, but that's what it looked like last year during the tournament. So you can see it's quite a large complex, and that's open. That's our legacy. We open it for the tournament, and it stays open the entire winter for families to go and skate. Numbers to date, we've donated $272,000 to our two charities in total. Economic impact, we're estimating approximately $350,000 based on our total operating budget. Helped secure over $250,000 in grants for expanding those rinks. Over 1,500 players to date have participated. We've had 8 teams from Toronto, 2 from Ottawa, and that number is growing each year, and so it's becoming a lot more recognized area outside our local region. 1,200 volunteers hours has gone into this. So what I like to look at as a future, and one of the reasons why I'm here is to talk, obviously Trent Memorial affects Brighton as much as it affects Quinte West. We're running near the limit of our infrastructure in Battawa, and in the future we're going to be looking to possibly expand into other areas. And whether or not Brighton is an interesting point, I've talked to Belleville as well. But to me, I can see this tournament one day turning into a tournament that is a Quinte region tournament that has locations in Brighton, Quinte West, and in Belleville, and even out in the county, and we actually all benefit from it. If you look at the tournament up in Haliburton, 1,700 players participate each year, and economic impact they estimate at $750,000. So it's not a small little league anymore. And we're much more accessible than Haliburton is for the GTA. And so that's one thing I'm just introducing now. We're coming up on our 10th anniversary in a few years, and then the appetite to see if other communities would like to begin to work with us and turn this into a regional event, because CFP Trenton is much more than just Trenton. It's this entire region. Hockeyfortroops.com has all of our information. You can register online, buy tickets online, volunteer online. Everything is listed there, all the information you would ever need. And like I said, we've donated some substantial money from this tournament. So that completes my conclusion. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Captain Morehouse, and I'll read the motion, then I'll open the floor for discussion. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The Council receives delegation from Captain Jeff Morehouse regarding the CFB Pond Hockey Classic, February 1st to the 3rd, 2019, and Wounded Warriors and the Trenton Memorial Hospital Foundation. Are there any questions? Councillor Bateman.
Less a question, more a statement. It was nice to see you again. I filled in for the mayor at the media launch. I just want to let the council know, I let the mayor know I had donated 2 tickets. Hopefully that'll help you raise some money at your auction for the NHL alumni game. I also want to pledge the sport on the Saturday and the Sunday. We'll be sending up Brighton Minor Hockey, and on behalf of the town, you'll be getting the Bantam team from Brighton here to help you out on Saturday and Sunday to retrieve the pucks.
Excellent.
Because I think you went through 250.
Yeah, we had 250 in order. We ran out of pucks last year.
I'll touch base with you on the time, but we'll be sending a team to help you out.
Excellent.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Is this something that the municipality in the past has sponsored or donated anything to?
No, we haven't. We actually haven't gone to any municipalities for funding. Our help, Quinte West, the city has been great. Obviously, it happens within our city limits. We haven't even asked them for money. They provide logistic supports for us.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Well, it's funny you haven't came and looked for donations for your auction, because I have a lot of good paintings from artists like Wayne Gretzky, Phil Esposito, T-shirts, signed T-shirts, that I go to different benefits that I bid on, I get them, and then I redonate them back for auctions. And I have quite a few of them. So if you come to Tri-County Plastic or at my house,
all right,
yeah,
we'll do.
From some of them are wine from the '72 Olympics, the whole box all signed with the pictures and everything. So if you wanted some of these items for donation, you're more than welcome to know.
Thank you.
Councillor Tadman.
I'll take one of your shirts. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I've been really admiring your shirt. If I volunteer, do I get a discount on one of those?
So we originally ordered 100 of these jerseys, and we sold out very quickly on these jerseys. And I finally found a supplier who actually can replicate this jersey for a reasonable cost, because we got an excellent deal the first time. Unfortunately, I didn't find the person until a week ago. So they won't be ready before the tournament, but we will be putting an order in the new year. So we'll be taking people's names. I already have a list from last year for people who are interested in these jerseys. This was actually talk about a volunteer, a person actually from living in London, graphics designer, heard about the tournament and made this logo for us and gave it to us. And he actually designed the entire jersey and everything.
Nice. Councillor Bateman.
Councillor Tadman, if you attend as a volunteer, I'll drive you, and you're wearing a Brighton Brave jersey.
I can do that, thank you, Councillor.
Any other questions? I'll just call the vote. All in favor of receiving the delegation? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, Captain Morris. Appreciate your attendance. And I will take a 7-minute recess. We will reconvene at 8:10. It is 8:11. I'll call the meeting back to order. And we'll move into citizens' comment. I have 2 citizens' comments, both with regard to off-road vehicles. So I'm going to call John Harwood forward. And Mr. McMurray, I'll ask you to listen to John Harwood's citizen comment. And if he says what you're going to say, we'll ask you to just nod your head and it'll be okay, okay?
That's your ruling.
There we are. Attaboy. We'll see how that works out. Yes, you do, sir. Please.
I understand that.
Yeah, I understand I only have 2 minutes, right?
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
You have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay, I can talk in my usual slow drawl instead of talking fast. All right. I'm John Harwood again, off-road vehicles. I missed the public meeting last fall, so I came as a delegate on the 4th of September, and you all should have a copy on your desks of what I said at that time, what I presented at that time. The previous mayor, Mark Wallace, told me afterwards that it was a dead issue since the county would not allow off-road vehicles on any of their roads, and there was no way you could get anywhere within the municipality of Brighton without using a county road. 2 weeks ago, I happened to be in the clerk's office asking about the strategic plan, and the subject came up again, and the clerk, Patrick, and you, Brian, Mayor Brian, were there, and I mentioned this again, and you both reconfirmed that this was still the situation, that the county would not allow off-road vehicles. Yesterday, I was told that it's now on tonight's agenda. And many petitions have shown, many petitions have been brought up objecting to this, and they have shown that about 97% of the residents are against the operation of off-road vehicles on our municipal roads, especially those of us who live in the rural area, and especially the farmers are against it. The 3% minority come mostly from outside the municipality, and they don't represent the people who live here. I want to keep my remarks short. I have two requests to council. One, that my observation is that this new it's unfair to expect this new council to make a vote on this when they haven't received the information and input from people. They're operating on second-hand information from the previous council. And for that reason, I would ask you to make a motion to defer a vote tonight until you've had a chance to listen to all the presentations or some more presentations from this municipality on this subject. If that's not agreeable, then I would request that you all look at the information I presented in my delegation last September, which is on your desks, and read that before you make a decision. That's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harwood. Mr. McMurray. So this is a citizen's comment from Roger McMurray, again with regard to the off-road vehicle bylaw.
Thanks, Mayor. Roger McMurray, Brighton, Ontario. I've listened, or I've seen requests from the Northumberland ATV Riders Club since 1996, and I wasn't on council then, so I wrote letters to the editor noting my opposition to these vehicles. And when they started this process of writing a bylaw, it said that they would use other municipalities in the area as templates or guides. In any case, Quinte West has excluded ATVs from their urban areas. Belleville has done the same thing. But I noticed in our agenda tonight, it states that the ATV, this bylaw would apply to the entire municipality. The entire municipality. So that means that you, if you live in town, could be subject to ATVs running up and down your street during the day. It doesn't permit them in the wintertime, which is good, but it does permit them up until 8 o'clock at night. And this is only a figure, and it's the bylaw is a temporary bylaw, so it's one of these things that will come into force for 6 months supposedly. It ends in November, but you know, and I know, that these things have a life of their own once they're hatched. And when November rolls around, it'll be swept under the rug, and the boys will carry on as they did before. So it's you know, I'm not saying this definitively, but the fact of the matter is that from the year 1982 to 2016, the number of ATV fatalities in Canada was 14,653. Of this number, 3,232 were kids under 16. And to make it worse, there was another 1,411 kids that were under 12. So I don't want any blood on my hands. So I would ask that you really take a good look at bringing this to the population of Brighton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McMurray. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council receive citizens' comment from the January 21st, 2019 Council meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Move into staff reports. Our first staff report is from the Fire Department. And Chief, we have read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time, Your Worship.
That's with regard to the November 2018.
November, yes.
Yep. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman. The Council receives the Fire Department activity report for November 2018. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Chief Caddick, we've received your monthly report for December 2018. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not to the report, I just, if I could, Your Worship, through you to members of council and to staff and those in the gallery, just to point to your delegations this evening, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware, or council was aware, that Brighton Fire will actually have 2 teams sponsored and will be in that pond hockey tournament of members of our department, because we do have a team that plays in a lot of tournaments around. And also that members of the brigade, through our Nevada accounts that we have, will be making a $3,000 contribution to the Legion for their Raise the Roof project. So that's going to be forthcoming.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Chief. That's good news on 2 fronts. Appreciate that information. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman. The council receives the Fire Department Activity Report for December 2018. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. On your pond hockey competition, I'm not sure if you would know the times that your teams are going to play, but could you email that to some of us so that we could maybe be there to cheer on Brighton?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Rowley, indeed, I will do that. You'll know our guys. Our jerseys all look like fire bunker uniforms, but they're a hockey jersey. But we'll certainly provide that information to you.
Good. I can't be there all day, but I would certainly make an effort to be there when our guys are on the ice. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? Councillor Tadman.
Could you, since this is all in your report, I noticed that you have talked to the people about a command center at the Legion?
Yes.
Do you want to elaborate a bit on that?
I can, through you, again, Your Worship, through to Councillor Tadman. We did receive a request about 2 weeks ago from the Legion to come and take a look at their facility. We, of course, have been through there before, but Deputy Ogden and I did attend there and took a very hard look at the facility as how it could be utilized in an emergency situation. And certainly the Legion building has several attributes that would make it a very favorable location as a reception center, a place that people could gather to move on from that point, a muster point, if you will. And also with the kitchen facilities that it has there to allow that facility to help feed or to look after our volunteers and people that might be assisting in emergency. So it can serve on a couple of fronts. So I forward that recommendation through to the emergency planner for Northumberland County, Ken Stubbings. And so the NESS committee, or the shelter committee, will be viewing that facility and then making a recommendation at that time. And I also sit on that committee, so I will be certainly putting my support behind that.
Thank you, Chief. Supplemental?
Further to that, through you, Mayor, when we had the train derailment, you were on council at the time, I think. No, you weren't?
That was
West.
Pre-amalgamation.
No, the other one.
Yes, I was on, the one in Crammy.
No, the one that, well, no, it was, yeah, I guess it was just,
It was just inside Crammy.
in Crammy, yeah. But a lot of things went on here, and we have such a small kitchen here, and I was trying to make coffee for volunteers, and I couldn't keep up in that small little kitchen, so I think that would be a great place.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. Any other questions? All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion is carried. And Chief Caddick, we have your 2018 Emergency Planning Committee report. We've read it. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
If I may, Your Worship, just that, of course, as you've read in the report, and those that did participate in our tabletop exercise, we do appreciate all the input, and you have a copy of that after action report on that exercise. And of course, we're looking forward to, and I can assure you or tell you that the planning committee has already begun to meet to put together our field exercise, which will be happening probably early October here in the municipality of Brighton. So that is already underway, so you'll be hearing more about that as we move through the next few months.
Thank you, Chief. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council receive the 2018 Emergency Planning Report as information, and that Council approve the appointment of Deputy Chief Ogden Jeff Ogden as alternate CEMC for the municipality of Brighton. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Chief Caddick. Take care. Our next report is from the Director of Parks and Recreation. Mr. Miller, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, not at this time.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley and seconded by Councillor Tadman that Council receives the report dated December 17th, 2000. Nope, that's not it. Don't have one. You signed it? Oh, did I include it here? Got it. Got it. Have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman. Same people, there you go. That Council receives the report on Hilton Hall usage and that Council approves the Brighton Girl Guides organization to use Hilton Hall for free, providing that they present proof of $2 million of liability insurance with the municipality named as a co-insured entity, that cleaning of the hall and washrooms are conducted on an as-need basis, and that Council also restrict the use of Hilton Hall to those of the municipality and the Municipal Heritage Committee until further notice. Does that make sense? Not really. We're offering the use by the Girl Guides, and then we're saying that it'll only be used by the municipality and by the Heritage Committee. Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, can we strike the last part of that off? Because I think there needs to be more discussion on how we can best utilize the Hilton Hall. And I know we have a problem with not great accessibility and also not much of a kitchen, but
Deputy Mayor?
For now, we just need to know that the Girl Guides are okay there.
Right. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So I'm on the Heritage Committee, or have been, and this has gone back and forth a few times. And we did have Jim there to have a discussion about it. And the idea of this, I don't know if we need until further notice on this motion, but the idea is that, we have the Girl Guides there, and we have heritage events, and we have municipal events, but that's it. And we're not renting it out to all kinds of different people because we don't have the proper facilities there. And with these three groups using it, that's probably enough because we don't have the staff to man it either. That was the idea and behind the wording, I believe, of that.
So is it okay with the mover and seconder if I change the second line in this to read that Council restricts other uses of the Hilton Hall to those of the municipality and the Municipal Heritage Committee? That way we've included Girl Guides, the municipal uses, and heritage. Is that fair? Go ahead.
No, I think we need to do a little more research. Probably every person here knows Flo Chatton, and I was visiting with her the other day, and she said it's so sad that place sits idle most of the time. I think we can make better use of all of our facilities, but there must be other things that we could encourage people to use that for.
So, Councillor Rowley, this is your motion. You have moved it. How would you like it to be read?
Sorry, Councillor Tadman. I would like to have the motion as you read, minus the last line. Can we add? I just want to go. I just want to listen to what Deputy Mayor Vink. She sat on the committee, so if she could just kind of clarify exactly what your committee intended in the first place, and if it's something that needs to come for a review at some point, that would be fine by me. But can we just leave the motion as you amended it?
As altered Yeah, go ahead.
I think the problem is the type of building that it is. It doesn't have proper kitchen facility. It's not really equipped to hold a lot of, we're just concerned that if we start holding events there, we could get ourselves into trouble. We still have a community center, we have the Cotterington Center. Instead of people renting the Hilton Hall, we'd rather them rent those centers for what they need. And the Hilton Hall, the Heritage Committee, there was a group that was doing a lot more events, and they aren't anymore. That can be something we can be looking at, doing some more events. It's great that the Girl Guides are in there as often as they do, that way there is some usage of it, but we'd also have to hire someone to be there cleaning and maintaining and booking, and there were all these things that came up when we started talking about it, and that's why the idea was, at this point, we're probably best just to leave it at the Girl Guides, the Heritage Committee, and any other municipal use. That was the conclusion of the meeting. Did you have anything to add, Jim?
That's true, through you, Mr. Mayor. The thing is, it used to be an office. So it suited that type of use. So now, there's a certain ideas for the community center, but it's not really a community center as we've been, seeing or hearing. There's no kitchen, washing facilities are minimal. The space is minimal. So really, you can't make it into something that building is not made for, type of thing.
Councillor Anderson.
Well, it is a heritage building, and it is part of our community, so we have to pay a lot of attention. I think it should be in our plan that we're working on, our strategic plan. It could be designed to be a place for the events committee. It could also maybe make use of it for small events. I know there were a lot of small events there. There were speaking engagements, groups coming to fundraise, using it for fundraisers. So I don't know. I don't think we should. Sounds like we're putting it down. I think it's a very important part of the community.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. But both of those things that you mentioned would have been either through the Heritage Committee or through the municipality. So this motion wouldn't restrict those events from happening.
I'm not changing the motion. I'm just. I think you were asking. Did you ask for comments or?
I saw your hand up, so I.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Councillor Bateman.
I tend to agree with Deputy Mayor, and the Director of Parks and Rec could probably elaborate on it. Going forward with accessibility legislation is changing, 2024, 2025. I don't think we could open it up to too many more groups for all the other reasons they've already mentioned, and your accessibility isn't going to limit what you could use that for. You could probably elaborate, what is that, 2025?
Yeah, it's 2025.
It's 2025, Deputy Mayor.
Again, there was a talk about, we can have our Heritage Committee meetings there more often. There are other groups that can meet there within the municipality that need a meeting space. It's there. It's not about not having anything going on there. It'd be good to have a little bit more usage of the building, no doubt, but we just don't want to open it up to all kinds of other groups because that's probably not a good idea. But for municipal use, it's definitely there.
So the friendly amendment has the final line reading that council restricts other uses of the Hilton Hall to those of the municipality and the Municipal Heritage Committee until further notice. Councillor Tadman, you're the seconder of this. Do you still wish to remain the seconder?
No, I don't. I think if you took the whole last
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
I want to finish. If you took the last whole sentence out of there, I could second that motion because I still think that there could be consideration for small groups to go there. There is a group that goes there that play their instruments that isn't part of the municipality already. Pardon?
Go ahead.
They're part of the Heritage Group. They're put on by the Heritage Committee, through the Heritage Committee, those groups, and they will still continue. We're not restricting any of that.
But some of those people in that group are non-heritage or part of the municipality.
Go ahead.
But they are put on through the Heritage Committee. We have subcommittees that are organizing those. So they're still heritage events, so they will still continue. None of those things will stop. It's about not advertising it for a painter's club or, whatever to come in. That's what we want to avoid. That's the only thing we want to avoid. All those other events that have happened there will continue.
Councillor Tadman.
Through you to Deputy Mayor Vink, how often then does it get used in a month?
I'm not aware of the actual monthly usage. It depends on what's being organized. I know there's a song circle on a regular basis and a few other things. And when there were more active members, there was more going on there. And then, that fluctuates. But it's certainly anything that the Heritage Committee is wanting to get involved in could still happen there.
And we do heat, through you again, we do heat we haven't got Public Works here, but we heat the building.
We do.
We pay insurance on the building. We put a lot of money into restoring the building. And I would say probably 95% of the time it sits idle. And Flo Chatton lives just up the street from it and knows that. No, I won't second that.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Vink, that Council receives the report on the Hilton Hall usage, that Council approves the Brighton Grow Guides organization to use Hilton Hall for free, providing that they present proof of $2 million of liability insurance with the municipality named as a co-insured entity, that cleaning of the hall and washrooms are conducted on an as-needed basis, and that Council restricts other uses of the Hilton Hall to those of the municipality and the Municipal Heritage Committee till further notice. Are there any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried.
Mayor?
Debate is over.
Yes, that's right. I don't want to debate anything, but I was wondering if I could ask a question. I should maybe have done it while the fire chief was here, but Jim Miller is still here, and I don't know if you will let me, can I ask, and then you can tell me?
Well, I'll let you ask the question.
Okay.
It's important.
But I'll determine if it'll get answered. Go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. I was we were talking about emergencies, and I was thinking about the arena, and with the cold temperatures that we have had yesterday, today, and it looks like the rest of the week, do we have I want to say the community center open as a warming room in case there are people who need to be inside for a while?
The answer to your question is not officially. I don't believe it's opened officially as a warming center in the community. Your next question might be, should we be? And I believe that would be an operational question. So I'd ask the CAO if that's something that we think is something we should be doing for tomorrow. The temperature is going to go up to 3 degrees on Wednesday, allegedly. So, CAO?
Through you, I need to consult with the fire chief and other directors to determine if you've ever done it in the past.
We have.
I know twice in the summer, we opened it and made it available as a cooling room, but I don't know that if it's ever been utilized for a warming room purpose.
I don't recall that.
I've only been here since August, so I haven't been through a 30-degree day.
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, the arena's open. It's open every day from 8 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. And we have heat there, so, it can be used as a warming facility, the lobby. The community center is rented. The next couple of days, a fair amount through different user groups, but again, the arena lobby's there.
But people could come to the arena to warm up, and people, of course, could come to the library for the same purpose if that's what they wanted to do.
Facility's open.
Perhaps those of us who are able could get that out to our groups and contacts so that people know if they have a neighbor that is in need of a warming center, that the front entrance of this building, although they have to come into the side, and the arena are available for warming centers.
Thank you for allowing me the question.
It was my pleasure. Our next staff report is with regard to off-road vehicle bylaw, and this is a report from Mr. McGee. We have read your report, Mr. McGee. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Your Worship, I would just like to give a little bit of background because there is new council members. The initial...
Be brief.
Okay.
Thank you.
The initial bylaw was brought back in the council meeting in June 18th, 2018. There was a motion passed to staff advertise it for 1 month to receive comments from the public. comments were received and brought back to council August 13th as information. Council passed a motion to direct staff to develop a draft blanket bylaw covering the entire municipality. I have brought that blanket bylaw to you guys today. I just want to touch on two things. The one being with the OPP report, that 65% of the complaints received were residents knowing that they weren't permitted on the road. And they were basically in an isolated area. The second being the liability. And the liability, if we do permit them on the road, falls under Section 44 of the Municipal Act, which refers to maintenance of roads. And that could, we're doing it right now with the snow clearing, and also in the spring and summer and fall when they fill potholes or fix shoulders. That's where our liability would come from. We have a duty to care and make sure the roads are maintained. So if there was an incident with an ATV, the roadway would be the first thing looked at. Other than that, I've provided as much information to council the last 6 months to hopefully help them make a decision.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley and seconded by Councillor Tadman that council receives the report dated December 17th, 2018 regarding off-road vehicle bylaw, and that council enacts a temporary bylaw to regulate the operation of off-road vehicles on highways within the entire municipality of Brighton. Are there any questions? I'm going to suggest that we alter this to read that we direct staff to bring forward a bylaw, because there's no bylaw in our agenda tonight. And I don't want a motion that would enact a bylaw without having a bylaw in our package. If we choose to, if in fact we vote in the affirmative of this, then we would need a bylaw in our package to vote for.
So you need the wording changed once again, sir?
I would suggest that council direct staff to bring forward a temporary bylaw to regulate the operation of off-road vehicles on highways within the entire municipality, the next council meeting for council's consideration.
I would agree to that, especially reading some of the comments here that this bylaw won't be enacted, as I read it, until the 1st of April anyway. It's just for a period of 6 months, right?
Right.
I'm okay with that.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
You okay with that, Councillor Tadman?
Yes, and I second the motion because it needed to come on the floor, and I don't have a problem doing that and voting against something. And I certainly have given this a great deal of consideration and would like to give a trial to see how it goes, because I understand Trent Hills did that and they didn't have any problems. But on the other hand, I think that one of the residents, John Harwood, brought up a good point. This is a new council that didn't sit around here when this was all discussed before. And if it's council's wish, I would just like to defer it at least till the next council meeting so that they can hear the voice of the residents. But the bottom line is I think I know that I would support giving this a trial and giving everybody a chance to really be responsible, and hopefully that would be what would happen. And you can confirm that the county will not allow them on county roads, is that correct?
I can confirm through Mr. McGee's report that...
Yes, yeah, okay.
County roads 30 and 26 would not be usable by ATVs. Your microphone.
Do we know the rules at Presqu'île? Because there's some narrow roads in there that could be a problem. So is there places where we need to put restrictions if we do pass this?
Mr. McGee?
The park itself does not permit it.
That's what I thought.
So accessing Bayshore Road would not be lawful, even if we pass this bylaw?
Yeah, because as far as I know, that's a provincial road going in there, so
it is.
No one could actually get down into
You can't get to it unless you go across the ice.
Or on a trailer. Yeah, they could trailer it.
The locals down there could drive around amongst houses, but...
Yeah.
Councillor Anderson.
Are we going to debate this, or can we debate this tonight?
Yes, we can debate it right now.
I'm going to take some time if you don't mind. First of all, you mentioned that the road at Bayshore is a provincial road. Are you referring to the road that, the street that goes right to the residence end? That's municipal road, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So, but the road from the gates of Presqu'île to Bayshore Road are provincial roads.
So I just want to make it clear that so then ATVs won't be able to access the residence road?
They wouldn't be able to lawfully drive on the provincial roadway without provincial authority. That would not stop anyone from trailering an ATV to Bayshore Road and using it down there.
Okay. I'd like to take a couple minutes, so I just wanted to clarify that. We had a number, I think our strategic plan needs to be addressed with this whole topic as well. In this, we're going to hear about tourism. We're going to hear about all the advantages of ATVs coming through our town and coming downtown and that type of thing. So we are really strong. I was strong on having a strategic plan done right away, and I know you, Mayor, you were, and I agreed with that. And I think that's the best place to look at this, how it's going to be affected by outside interests, outside travelers. What are they going to do when they come through here? How many are going to come through? We have no stats on, we have no knowledge of what to expect. And what's it going to do to our roads that are already in need of repair, meaning trees, shoulders, overgrowth on shoulders, and that safety issue comes up again. And the safety issue comes up is the cost part of it. That was your number two you mentioned. Is there going to be you don't have to answer this, is there going to be increased cost in our insurance because of an added risk to the community? Do we know that?
It's not an added risk. It falls under Section 44 of the Municipal Act. It's a risk if our roads are, full of potholes or if there's anything obstructing shoulders.
Sorry, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't clear. I imagine these drivers are responsible. I have no question about their abilities. I'm just saying if our shoulders aren't in good shape and we're asking them to drive on their shoulder unless otherwise safe, and or otherwise, if they deem it not safe, they can ride on the road.
That's
right?
Correct, yep.
And I've heard it that they'll just make it simple and just drive on the road, but that's hearsay. Your number one also, you stated the OPP report was a 5-year report up to 2017. Nowhere in the report was there about the two fatalities on Carman Road. Why? The other thing is, I mentioned the strategic plan. I think John Harwood, excellent report, and that's coming from our rural area. Also, your report as well, coming right from our urban area. They're good reports, and I think we need to. I'm listening to the public. I know the public has stated many times there's people for and against, and I'm gonna tell you one really interesting thing for you to think about when you're making a decision. That we had I don't want to call them surveys. One was a Facebook request to get some information, and it was quite active. There was about 1,200 clicks to that. So I have that. You all have that, if you want to look at that. It was a survey that showed 72% of those people that responded said, yes, let's ATV on the road. It was questioned this way: Council has been asked to consider allowing ATVs on our public roads. Do you think it's a good idea? I guess yes, allow them on the roads. And then 28% said no, keep it the way it is. Well, my study, and I did extensive study for 2 days, if you look at any study done, there's also another study that you sent out, you advertised looking for, and you got about 60, I'm jumping off ship here a little bit. You did, there's 2 surveys. The one was more official. It was done through an ad in the paper. And you got about 60 that you could identify. I think you got about maybe 75, but there's about 15. It's hard to identify whether they live here or who they are. And there's about 60 that were very clear on whether they were for or against. From that survey, excuse me, and that won't take a lot more time, but I think this is very important. From that survey, there was 43 that said no. 43 of the 60 said no. And I've gone through and read every letter. They're excellent letters, excellent recommendations, suggestions. Some people talk a lot. Maybe I do. There were only 16 that were in favor of the new bylaw. So that's an official community one going out through the press and getting official answers back. And you did an excellent job. You did an excellent job even getting back to those people to make sure you were clear in what they were saying. So I commend you for that. This other survey that was done, a Facebook survey, which I don't like them. It's totally backwards as far as the report. The report states, and it's in our report, that 72% said yes, and then 28% said yes to let's get the ATVs in the community on our roads, and 28% said no. And that's assuming that that's the public telling us that, and everybody's saying, not everybody. Sorry, I'm going off board here, but people think by seeing these nice colored reports that that's the case. Well, the case is 195 Brighton people clicked, approximately, by off a few, clicked on that Facebook. The balance of the 1,200 didn't come from Brighton, and I have all kinds of documentation on that. The other, and you knew, and I think we were suspected of some of that, but not so drastic. So, when those people clicked on, what would people like to do also that are really interested in something, or just want people to know? There were 73 shares from people on that Facebook. Guess where the shares went, and guess where the responses came back from? They went all the way to BC, Alberta, Newfoundland. There was a few, can't remember the cities in the States. We got American people. I don't think, maybe they were from here originally, or they just belong to a club, or they've been here before, or they know somebody. In most cases, that's what Facebook's about, friends. So if you want to look at the information you have with an open mind and not being critical, because I'm not being critical, I'm just coming up with the facts. None of this information is clear to make a decision, and we should put it in our strategic plan. And if tourism is a big part of it, is the number one thing that's going to come from this, well, let's do a proper analysis of that, and let's do a study on that, or the committee, and go see where it all goes. And now you can't use, you confirmed that tonight, that just added to what I'm talking about. There's no access here, so how are they going to access the community? The community could probably hop on a vehicle and then drive up. No, they can't even drive out of here. So they're going to be restricted to staying in the urban area. And I don't want to see them in the subdivisions, I don't want to see them downtown, and I don't want to see them driving through hamlets. We have a number of hamlets that there's enough speeding, and I'm, just one more second there, Mr. Mayor. We've got to get that under control in this community as well, because you see that in all kinds of letters and comments, and I commend you for taking so much time to put that information in your report. So that's it, Mr. Mayor. I think if everybody can make a decision based on this information, we could do it tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So this has come before council before, and I've read the information, and I'm having a hard time with it. At this point, I'm not convinced that it's overall the best thing for Brighton. And it's really hard because you, of course, hate to disappoint anybody when you're sitting here. But overall, I'm just not convinced at this point, and I would probably be voting that way tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. I was on council several years ago when it initially came here. At the time, Mr. Phillips was the Director of Public Works. I sat with him along with some of the Northumberland ATV riders and my husband as well. And what you need to know, most of this is to focus on trail riding. This isn't really for someone to come into town to pick up their groceries. They might come into town for a sandwich and gas. I can assure you, having ridden an ATV for many years between here and Bancroft and back, the focus for this is to ride trails, not to scoot through certain subdivisions. I'm sure on my ATV you're not going to find me in Brighton by the Bay or in Orchard Gate. That's not what ATVs are for. They're not for subdivisions. They are to access trails. Basically, back then, the problem was, as I think it is now, access from the Quinte West trails to the Crammy trails, and a lot of it will be in the rural area. You're not going to see them downtown. You might see them at McDonald's, maybe at the 401, to pick up gas for your machine if you don't want to come all the way into Brighton. They're not going to come into Brighton just to pick up gas. So that's kind of how I see it. These people who ride these machines are not looking to ride around town. We've got a few of the gentlemen sitting here in the back. I'm sure if you ask them, they're going to tell you the same thing. It's for trail riding, to enjoy what we have to the north. You're not going to get them into town too much. Are they safe to ride in town? If you ride along with the speed limit, if you do exactly what the rules and the regulations under the Highway Traffic Act say, you're not going to have any problems. I just see it as a recreational sport. It's not to come into town to get my groceries.
But under this bylaw, they could.
Exactly, they could, but I don't think that we're going to, if we pass a bylaw, whether it's tonight or whether it's in February, that we're going to see the Sobeys lots full of ATVs.
And you won't see the McDonald's lot full of ATVs because they can't run down 26 or 30, so they'd have to come down Christiani Road and across Telephone Road, and guess what?
And if there was a
They're
trail...
going to go into Quinte West and get
That's right.
food.
They could do that too.
Councillor LeBlanc.
I've been very patient listening to this. So one thing I did by listening to Councillor Anderson, that I found out not to trust Facebook. So the next thing I found out is that basically the surveys that have been done are 76% in favor. If you read the ones that were not in favor, or 72%, the ones that weren't in favor, they came from Brighton by the Bay, Presqu'île. Presqu'île, even if you trailer your four-wheeler into the park, you can't use it in the park. It's illegal to use a four-wheeler in the park. Now, this law is to make people legal. You got people that use their four-wheeler to clean their driveway. If we don't pass this and they touch the road, they're going to be fined. This law is not to allow 12-year-olds to run on bikes or people under 16. They will have a valid driver's license. They will have insurance. They will have helmets. They will have stuff like the rest of Ontario enjoys. For some reason, Brighton puts himself in a different place, different than the rest of Canada and the rest of Brighton. What I saw tonight was the start of the old council, which kind of got me upset. So, the thing is, this is for the wellness of the city, so that the people that live here in Brighton, that were here in the past, not the people that come from the city, basically to enjoy their life and enjoyment of life. You go to Campbellford, they have it passed. You don't see any four-wheelers going around all over the place and fear-mongering and running and going through fields and everything. You don't see that because the four-wheeler clubs that get this take care of themselves. They watch themselves. The 12 and the under 16-year-olds that the past councillor was talking about, you can't stop that. It's going to happen. You got the crew that's going to do it all the time. The other thing is, Mr. Anderson, you told me that basically Prince Edward County had disbanded the bylaw on Saturday. I went to Prince Edward County today. I went there, the bylaw hasn't been done, and I got a map from the OPP where they can run in all the trails that they can. You get the map from the OPP. I gave you that map tonight. So, the thing is, I'm in favor of this. It's long overdue. I don't know if it should be running downtown. I don't think any of the four-wheeler operators will be running downtown and doing this. They have a law, they can go, but the thing is, they'll be doing it legally. The thing is, when I get on my four-wheeler and I'm in Quinte West, I have my helmet and stuff, I'm riding 40 kilometers an hour. If I want to do something in the town of Brighton, I have to look behind myself, and I have to try to get on the trail and get off as quick as possible because I'm creating an illegal act. I've lost one employee because this wasn't passed. His name is Ben Simple, because he was riding on a road trying to go between his father's house and where he was living. He saw a car that came up, and he turned around, and he lost control. If he could have been doing that safely, he'd still be here. He is here. He's in a coma. He's in there. And he come out just long enough to tell us what happened, and then he went back into it. He's been in it for almost 2 years. He was one of my prized employees. So because of that, I'm in favor of this to make people legal, and said people can do things safely. They don't have to run and hide. If you want to make people illegal and say, well, I'm not going to pass this, but they're still going to use it, so you're taking citizens that would do stuff legally and making them illegal. If that's what you want to do it. But I'm in favor of this. Okay?
Councillor Anderson.
You want to make them legal. Okay, I just that's what you said, right? You want to make them legal? So, okay, so I just take that in. Yes, I told you about Prince Edward County. Prince Edward County, if you look at your map, it states that they cannot use about half the roads in Prince Edward County. They cannot use the downtown. They cannot. We're talking about the entire community of municipality. That's what we're talking about, aside from the county roads that they can't use, those roads that the mayor was talking about. That's the difference. That's the difference. We're also, you just said 72% say it. I just went through an exhausted program to come up with the proper answer. 199, only 199 people from Brighton said they wanted it. Of the other 800, they came from BC, Alberta, Newfoundland, the United States, Toronto, Bancroft. They're all the clubs all went on and clicked. So you said so you went and confirmed the 72%. I'm sorry, you're wrong. I'm working on facts and information provided by our staff. I'm working on great information from our public, and the public has been very, a lot of people, if you're for something and I agree, you know, I respect that you've got the ability and you've got a machine and all that. I do. I wish you can get to those trails a lot better than you do. But we're talking about these vehicles, I'll call them vehicles for lack of another word, on our road, and accidents do happen, and I'm not even going on about accidents. We could have accidents in cars. It is up to the operator. It is but safety about the roads, about the shoulders, all those things are our responsibility. So I'm just going from the information that I was provided, and I think I did a very detailed piece of information that 7 items are not correct.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Any further comments?
Yes, I want to make them safe. Whether Rob would use the roads with my four-wheelers or not, I don't know. But the thing is, it'll make the people safe. They will use it responsibility. If the roads have a pothole, the pothole is just as dangerous to the car as it is to the four-wheeler. If you think that a four-wheeler is going to destroy roads, there's a lot more heavy tractor trailers and trucks that run around here with gravels and pull trailer that are a lot heavier than a four-wheeler. I know I'm heavy, but I don't come close to a 40,000-ton truck. And that's going to make potholes and rains and do anything. The thing is, Councillor, you have your opinion, I have mine. And the thing is, Mine is to make the people safe and to make them legal, and to make sure if anybody wants to come on these roads, they'll have the right plates, they'll have the right safety gear, they'll have to abide by everything through the bylaw. And also, then it's enforceable. The people that are going to be misusing it, do you want them to keep on misusing it and being unsafe and not being legal? Or do you want our citizens that want to use it to be safe and legal? Me, I want them to be safe and legal, to run our roads, to run our trails. And like Mary Tadman said, they're not going to be going on the road all the time. These guys know that they got a temporary bylaw from 8 to 8, from April 1st to November 31st. Nobody uses it after Christmas, or in the wintertime it's sleds. And you don't see anybody controlling a sled that's going down. But this is controlled, and every other municipality around us has it. If we're gonna,
No, sir, I have to object.
You go to Campbellford, do they have it in Campbellford?
Okay, you said every community.
No, not every, but around us, they do.
Well, I'm just...
With the exception of downtown Trenton, and with the exception of Coburg, and with the exception of the urban area of Port Hope. So it is mostly rural areas that are allowing this. Deputy Mayor.
They can go to
Deputy Mayor.
So I guess my question would be, to those of you who are in favor of it, and like I said, I haven't quite been convinced yet. Can we look at maybe restricting some areas of Brighton, maybe downtown and a few other areas, just to make the rest of us, feel better that that's not going to happen? Is that something we can talk about, like some of the other communities have done?
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. As an avid ATV rider, I am always about compromise, and I think the fact that those who I have spoken to are quite happy with the compromise as far as the 8 to 8, try it for 6 months. I can tell you those who are responsible will police themselves as well as others, and if taking it off the urban streets, I don't see that as an issue, but I think for everything that we try, there's absolutely no reason to have anything for a trial run. We do that with many other things, and to compromise for 6 months and see how it goes. I'm all for listening to what we hear from police reports. If there are people out there who are abusing our bylaws, whether it's this, whether it's whatever, with these motorcycles, these dirt bikes. I mean, I live on an urban street. I could probably count 3 every day that go through, not in the winter, but in the summertime. We don't really police them very well either. So I would just ask that I think a compromise for this group who have been waiting patiently for many years now. It must be close to 8, I think, when this first came to the council table, or when I was there, that 8 to 8 from April till November is a good compromise. And if we need to strike the fact that we need to keep them out of downtown for that long, with responsibility comes reward, and we can look at it again in November.
Councillor Bateman.
I don't know where to start. As much as I don't want to push anything off to another meeting, would it be best to delay this decision? I'm for this trial run, but I'd like to, so we can make sure we do our due diligence, do a proper survey if it's possible on the municipal website. I'd also like to have the OPP come in here and give us their factual numbers on what they think. All these other municipalities have done it. I think we'll see when they come in. We're not going to have the death tolls and the fear-mongering that we might expect.
So I've heard 2 members of council suggest a deferral, and I would suggest that if we're going to do that, that we actually refer it back to staff, ask them to provide a municipal survey on the website, keeping in mind that that won't give us any better data than any social media poll will do. Anybody can click on that and provide their yes or no. However, if it's council's preference to refer this back to staff, to provide some more information, to provide some compromise information with regard to other streets, I'm not sure what else. We should provide that direction to staff so that they know what it is they're expected to bring back to us. But a straight deferral, I don't think does us any good at all. I think it would be best, if we're going to do anything, either we vote on it tonight or we refer it back to staff. Councillor Bateman.
My preference is not to refer it back to staff, because I've actually emailed by officer. I thought it was well-written and well-researched, so, you know, if I was to do anything, I'd like to expand it because I think I have more of a, I think I like the way this is written, a trial run, but I think at some point we're going to have to address e-bikes and the motorized 10 speeds that are ripping around the roads is going to be a bigger issue because they're not regulated like Councillor LeBlanc said and not licensed, not helmet. That's our issue, not trial ATV.
Councillor Tadman.
If we defer this, there's no further, if I move a motion now,
That's right.
There's no more debate.
That ends the debate, yeah.
But Councillor Rowley has said that she, being an active ATV driver, would consider not having it in the urban streets. Are you thinking of subdivisions too? Because then that limits people that have them that want to get...
Well, it's like I have to do now. If I want to go somewhere, I have to put it on a trailer. And I drive around the subdivisions in my car, and I don't see a whole lot of ATVs there. So if I want to access the trails to the north of Brighton, I'm still going to have to take it on a trailer from today, right? So, or when we pass, if we pass a bylaw. As far as the information that Alan has given us, I think we have more than enough information. I would certainly be willing to wait to February to pass or not pass a bylaw, but I just don't know how much more information we need. This isn't a brand-new subject for anyone that's lived in Brighton for quite a while.
Councillor LeBlanc.
It's one of the things when I ran for council, one of the reasons I ran because the last council, I hate to say that, studied things too much and passed on too many things going on, and it went on and stuff kept on going back for years. So the past meetings, we have got rid of a lot of stuff that was passed on for a lot of times. To me, if Councillor Bateman, Councillor Anderson would like to agree of taking the downtown core out of it, which is the main core, I'd be willing to go with that. But the thing is, if he's going a flat no, well, I'll go for the whole blanket, but I'm willing to compromise with you.
Councillor Anderson.
Before we negotiate, one couple of things I didn't even mention. You know, here we are building a beautiful community of accommodation for people that come from outside the city that want to move here for what reason? I'm not doing the market study, but our builders probably are. I know that we have a lot of people that have moved here, that have come here for a reason. It's I'll call it a quiet town, or it's a relaxed town, a community, municipal town. I think we're, without studying this a little further with your strategic plan and my strategic plan, the one that we're all part of, to know where we're going, I think we might have personal thoughts. I'm not objecting from, I don't care but I know if we're going to have more policing, it's going to cost us more for that policing too. You said that, oh, well, let's just make sure that they're traveling properly. Well, I'm sorry, that takes in more policing, I think Councillor Bateman said, let's hear from them, from the OPP. Well, how does it affect our policing costs? How's it going to do that? So I think the community is building, it's growing fast, it's getting, the urban area is building up, we're getting nursing homes, we're getting some business coming to town now, thanks to some councillors here that also are very good at economic development. There's opportunities going on here, so I think just because it's been they've been waiting 10 years to get this changed, they're looking for a council that's come along. And I'm not part of the old regime. I think that you mentioned this is from the past.
Let's not debate that.
No, but But if there's comments made, I'll defend myself. And this information I gave you tonight is, and Mr. McGee, you don't have to agree, but I did touch on a number of points that were not correct.
They do mention the collision on Carmen Road.
Yes, and if you want, and I will turn over all the information, you can study it for a couple of days.
We're going into circular arguments here. We're just repeating ourselves. No, not you. I'm just. We've been at this for almost half an hour now. Councillor Tadman.
So no negotiation. I'm sorry, he asked one question, I didn't answer it, so no negotiation. I'd say if we get a vote, we vote. If you want to review it based on some of the reasons I even gave, but you gave some good reasons yourselves. If you want to, I didn't want to defer many items either, but this is one, I'm brand new to this. I've only been a counselor for less than 2 months, so this is not something that's been on my table for a long time.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Tadman.
I'd like to move a motion. I think we've had enough debate here, and I'd like to move that we move forward, make the recommendation that came from staff.
Okay, that motion is on the floor.
Okay.
It's moved by Councillor Rowley and seconded by Councillor Tadman that we receive the report and that we direct staff to bring, I'll just read the whole thing for you.
Okay, please.
It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council receives the report dated December 17th, 2018 regarding off-road vehicle bylaw. And further, the Council directs staff to bring forward a temporary bylaw to regulate the operation of off-road vehicles on highways within the entire municipality of Brighton to the next Council meeting for Council's consideration. I'll call for one last time. Is there any further discussion? And it better be new. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion is carried. So the bylaw will come forward to the next meeting. We didn't pass a bylaw this evening. We will debate the bylaw at the next meeting of council.
Make sure you bring it back in case we want to draw lines out. Seriously.
I don't think that's a bad idea.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not supposed to be here next week. I might come just to watch.
Well, aren't you a glutton for punishment?
My retirement date is 1st of January. Your next meeting, February 4th.
Our next report is from the Finance and Administration Department, the 2019 Development Charges Study. Mrs. Whitfield, do you have anything to add or highlight?
Just one thing to add that isn't in the report. This report was deferred a few times by staff. We removed it because of our agendas being pretty full, but this recommendation was made to the CAO while we were in lame duck. So that isn't in the report, and I think that's pertinent information.
Thank you. I appreciate that update. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council receives the information on the 2019 Development Charges Study. Are there any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. The next report is with regard to the 2018 Municipal Election Report on Accessibility. Madam Clerk, do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that staff post the 2018 municipal... Is that the one? Yep. That staff post the 2018 municipal election report regarding the removal and prevention of barriers that affects electors and candidates with disabilities be received. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Our next report is with regard to policies and procedures to assist in mitigating drainage issues and concerns, CAO. Do you have anything to add or highlight? Thank you, sir. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council receive the report dated January 21st, 2019, regarding policies and procedures to assist in mitigating drainage issues, concerns, and further, that the municipal planning consultant, senior municipal staff, and peer review consultants implement the recommendations over 2019 as a means of reducing drainage issues, concerns on a go-forward basis. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Our next report is with regard to opting in or opting out of allowing cannabis retail sales in the municipality of Brighton. CAO, do you have anything to add or highlight?
Through you, Your Worship, not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council received the brief staff report dated January 14th, 2019, and accompanying documents from AMO, AGCO, and the Ministry of Finance relating to opting in or opting out of allowing cannabis retail sales, and further, that council provide direction on whether the municipality of Brighton wishes to opt in, blah, 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 blah. So actually, last line should be, and further, let me know which way you want to go. Councillor Tadman, this is your motion. Microphone.
Sorry, Mayor, I wasn't following you because I had my mind on something else. Could you read it again, please?
That happens. This is with regard to opting in or opting out.
Yeah, I know that part.
So the first line is with regard to receiving the CAO's report.
Yeah.
The second line should advise staff whether we are going to opt in or opt out.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll need to know which way you'd like to go as the mover of this motion.
I'm opting in. We only got till tomorrow, right?
Yeah. So that council of the municipality of Brighton opts in to allowing cannabis sales, period. CAO, does that make sense to you? That council of the municipality of Brighton opts in to allowing cannabis retail sales. Does that work?
Through you, your worship, yes, it makes sense.
Thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Our next report is with regard to wastewater pollution control. This is from the Director of Public Works. So I'll ask Mr. King, do you have anything to add or highlight?
Through you, your worship, nothing at this time.
I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council receives the wastewater pollution control plant monthly report for January to December 2018 as information. Is there any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc.
I read the report in great detail, and I looked at it. The volatile suspended solids that they tried to do the study to bring up, they were trying to bring it up somewhere between 400 and 600. If they could have brought it up, they would have eliminated the ammonia problem. And they did for a short time. When they got higher class protozoas into the wastewater, and they were doing that study with Keith and the past CEO and the consultant. They worked really well. It did, but what happens in the summertime, it's too dry. You look at the flows are down. You look in the fall, when we get rain, so we still have a lot of infiltration in our pipelines, or we have illegal connections with sub pumps that are pumping it in to bring it up. Also, you look at the sludge that we've took out, 288 truckloads. That's going to happen again unless you get an activated sludge process or a sludge thickening process to bring your MLSS up. So a couple of members on the past council were really looking at it, but they were very close. You do need a mechanical plant if you want to. The tertiary plant will get rid of your ammonia.
So I'm just going to back us up here. I don't want to start the debate of mechanical plant or not. We've already gone down the road of our system, the system that we've been ordered to put in place by the Ministry of Environment, and we will go down that road. And I don't want to get confused as to what our role here is as members of council. We're not here to be experts in any one thing or another. We're here to set good policy on behalf of the municipality.
Correct.
Okay. So do you have any questions with regard to the report?
No, very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You had a comment?
Through you, your worship, yes, I have a number of comments. This report was prepared by Keith at the request of Jeff Graham, consulting engineer who's assisted this municipality for quite a number of years as it relates to the sewage issues and matters, as well as Preston Parkinson is now on board and aware. And this is a compilation of the reports of each of the months through the calendar year of 2018 in order to keep Victoria Light, the MOE CP officer at Peterborough, happy. and that's why we had to bring it forward to council tonight to get approval so that we can submit all of the 2018 report to her for information purposes. As it relates to how the results that you've achieved over 2018, we are now in the process of final design for the mobile bed biological reactor to address the ammonia exceedances. And in fact, I had a meeting earlier this week with the consultant for that very purpose. We're now about halfway through the final design report, and it will be forthcoming to council in the not too distant future. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor to receive the report still stands. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. We have no notices of motion or motions. We have no unfinished business. Our first bylaw is with regard to temporary borrowing, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Vink. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize temporary borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019. Would the treasurer just give a brief explanation as to why we do this, so for some newer members of council and for those of us who need refreshers?
Sure. First of all, the temporary borrowing bylaw has not been used by this municipality in a number of years. It's for the times before our taxes are collected and when cash flows are lower, where we may need to use a line of credit through the Royal Bank, who holds our line of credit with a balance of 0 at the moment. And it's an annual bylaw that we bring forward each January.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of council? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Our next bylaw is with regard to the interim tax levy, and it's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink and seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to provide an interim tax levy for 2019, and to provide for the payment of taxes, and to provide for penalty and interest. And would the treasurer just explain the interim tax levy and what it looks like, briefly?
So residents in this municipality receive 2 tax billings each year with 2 installments on each billing. The interim tax levy is 50% of your previous year's taxes, and we send those bills out at the end of January, and they are payable by the end of February and the end of April in those 2 installments.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the treasurer with regard to this bylaw? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Now move on to reports of advisory committees of council, minutes, and council reports. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The council received the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes September 27th, 2017, and draft December 12th, 2018. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion's carried. And I will need a motion to extend the meeting. Our curfew is 9:30, so if anybody's dad is waiting for them to come home, you can text him now. But it'll be a motion that council extend the January 21st council meeting to its natural conclusion. Councillor Rowley, second. Councillor Bateman. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. We'll move on to reports, minutes of statutory committees, boards, and external agencies, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Anderson that council receive both the DBI meeting minutes for October 11th, 2018 and November 1st, 2018. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. We'll move move on to correspondence. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receives the request from the National Wall of Remembrance and refer to budget deliberations. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receives the request of support from the Royal Canadian Legion and refer to budget deliberations. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Bateman that Council receive or endorse the Township of Mattis-Valcote request to amend the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing paragraph 4 of the Declaration of Office. Councillor Anderson, this is your motion. Would you like to receive or endorse the correspondence from Mattis-Valcote? This is... You're going to receive it?
I'd say receive it.
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to receive, the council received the Township of Mattis-Valcote request to amend the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing paragraph 4 of the Declaration of Office. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receive or endorse the resolution of the Municipality of Marmora and Lake to reestablish of the multi-stakeholder working group between the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, Ministry of Finance, AMCTO, MPAC, and Elections Ontario. Will we be receiving or endorsing that, Councillor Anderson?
I'll be receiving that, Mayor.
So the motion is to receive. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman. The Council refers to staff correspondence regarding safety concerns on Ontario Street. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Now we move into FYI correspondence. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley and seconded by Councillor Tadman that Council receives the news release from the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus's information. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council receives the AMO correspondence, financial risks for property taxpayers, and municipal budgets as information. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The Council receives the media release from the Brighton Public Library regarding the appointment of Heather Ratz as CEO of the Brighton Public Library as information. Is there any discussion? Councillor Tadman.
No, we were both on the library board the last time, and I think this is a real good choice. Heather filled in for Melissa while she was on maternity leave, and she did a great job, and I think she's very welcoming, and she'll do a great job.
She did an excellent job during Melissa's leave, and I have all confidence that she will continue to operate a good library here in the municipality of Brighton. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council receives the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation MPAC 2018 year-end assessment report as information. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
I need glue markers. Sorry, excuse me. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Reading the MPAC assessment that we have, and I know I've brought this concern many times regarding home-based businesses, and I have a few questions to maybe speak with Ms. Whitfield and/or Kathy Kelly at some point. I'm not going to ask you those questions tonight, Linda. I have a list, but I would like to maybe sit down with you at some time because I think we definitely need to review in this municipality the assessment and the tax levy, specifically commercial tax on home-based businesses. I think we're missing a few dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Way to sneak that in. Well done. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Had nothing to do with the MPAC 2018 report.
Yes,
I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receives the Wastewater Pollution Control Plant Annual Report as information. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. I now open the floor to question period. Questions may be asked from members of the public on any item that appeared in the agenda. Mr. McMurray. And I know we've seen you before, but please introduce yourself for the record, sir.
Thanks, Mayor. I was looking through the agenda today, and I noticed that the wastewater annual report has been produced by a consulting firm. It's my understanding this was done in-house in previous years. So could someone explain who hired the consultant and why we changed from an in-house process to a consultant?
Thank you, Mr. McMurray. I'll ask the CAO to field that question.
Through you, Your Worship, it's my understanding that Mr. Jeff Graham from Owen Sound, an engineer from Owen Sound, has worked for this municipality for quite a number of years, long before I arrived in August of this year. And he's assisted Keith Lee in all the different tests and experiments and trial and error to try to get the sewage lagoon working properly. Jeff and Keith are working cooperatively since we are now working under an order from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. They have an order issued against this municipality that we must comply with. And Jeff provides direction, and Keith Lee actually assembled all the information and the tables in the report. So that's how the report came to be produced. It was actually sent to me by Keith by email about a week ago. But Jeff Graham did assist him and did provide him with direction to make sure that the report contained all the information that the Ministry of Environment required. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks. I do understand that consulting firms are hired by council. At least they had been.
I think the confusion, Mr. McMurray, may be that the agenda shows the report being done by a JTG and KL.
That's
that
correct.
would be Jeff T. Graham and Keith Lee. It's just initials for the, that's all that
I had
is.
no knowledge of that.
Yeah, no, it took me a moment to figure it out too as you were talking, but that's where it came from. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
Mrs. Richardson?
Good evening, Your Worship, Council. Brenda Richardson. I would just like to have a couple of questions, actually, I guess, for Mr. King in regards to your report on the drainage, the development charges, to increase them to $2,000. I think if a developer will walk away from $1,000, he'll walk away from $2,000. And I'm just thinking that I've been to almost every meeting for the last year and a half. It's been the same developers, it seems, that these drainage issues. We had a developer here that came here, wanted to go to phase 2. Councillor Tadman asked him if the drainage issues had been fixed and everything, and he said yes, no, yeah, well, we're working on it. Meanwhile, we had all these people jump up just screaming and hollering, that these issues have not been resolved. We have a well-established developer here in this town. I have never once heard anybody complain about drainage systems from his homes. Is that the only way that this can be done? When you do an RFP, you go by a point system. Let these new developers prove themselves. We have developers here that have proven themselves, that have no drainage issues. charge, I think it should be at least 5,000 and figure out some way else to do it.
Are you comfortable answering that question?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Through you, when I wrote the report, I wanted to make it 5,000, but then I've been around so long, I was thinking a little bit too much politically than I should have. And I'm being quite honest when I say that. And I'll give an example. In fact, there's an example in the report when you talk about development charges. Very few municipalities or very few councils will adopt a development charge that is the maximum allowable. And when the consultants prepare a development charge study and they show maximum allowable, there's usually political resistance and a tendency to either cut it in half because they want to compete with the adjacent municipality. You don't want to scare away development, or you can phase it in over 5 years to make it affordable and not punitive to the developers. And so when I was wording the report, I thought, from 1,000 to 5,000, that's a little bit of an excessive, a little bit more than the rate of inflation. I thought it would have been rather punitive. I certainly agree that $1,000 is meaningless and $2,000 isn't much better. But I did go so far as to suggest that you start out, increase it each year, that you amend your fees and charges bylaw to get the message across that you're serious to people. And so I just kind of editorial license, I guess, when I was writing the report. I figured that would be the best way, the best compromise for getting some improvement and getting the message out there that we're tired of people, defaulting on their responsibility for lot grading and drainage. So that was my rationale when I wrote the report, Your Worship.
So we can anticipate that a future planner and/or Director of Public Works would ask us to increase that fee over time.
I will add to that, I still think 2,000 is not enough, but I will add when EOR had their first public meeting at King Edward Arena, the gentleman that was talked about, that he was the one that planted the trees for drainage to stop all these kind of problems, he said, we are way under. He said, and his words, and I quote, if they don't like it, they can build somewhere else. So he said that we are charging way too little, and he has reviewed our drainage issues.
Go ahead.
Through you, John Ewart and Jessica Chapman from Ewart O'Dwyer, they sat in on the meeting. Coburg's sitting around $5,000 on lot grading. But all the fault, I'm not going to go there because we're in open session.
I think we're good. I think we've got the message across, and thank you for your question.
Yeah.
If we could be no disrespect to anybody, but if we want to be the same on ATVs, hey, let's be the same on the drainage.
Thank you, Mrs. Richardson.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the public? So we will take a 10-minute recess before we go into closed session. Motion that council authorize the expenditure of funds necessary to purchase 0.9 hectares of land from the Nature Conservancy of Canada, as well as payments related to survey, legal, and Nature Conservancy of Canada expenses.
Good night.
That's moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Anderson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion's carried. I didn't sign it.
Morning, we're interviewing. I'm sorry.
And I'll need a mover and a seconder for this. That council approves the recommended changes to the municipal organization chart, and further that senior management consider these changes for the 2019 budget development and subsequent recruitment.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Tadman. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried.
We could make a consensus.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton meeting held on January 21st, 2019. Any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that the January 21st, 2019 council meeting adjourn at 10:38 p.m. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried.
Just